once again to the Yorkshire Gamers Elite Big Wargames podcast, and this is our special celebratory episode for episode number 50. It's the Golden Jubilee, would you believe? And as you would expect, I've got a couple of smashing guests to talk to today. I've managed to get both of the Toofatlardies, both Nick and Rich, to come on the show and to talk about many, many things, as you can expect with those guys. But we're going to talk about their World Cup win. If you remember the World Cup of Historical War Games that I ran a few months ago, the Toofatlardies managed to get two sets of rules in the final, and Chain of Command defeated Sharp Practice in that matchup. So we'll get to speak to those guys in a few minutes and see how they feel about being both the winning and the losing managers in the World Cup. In other podcast news, the last episode with Dave Brown has proved extremely popular, and the previous episode before that with Peter Thompson from ProArt that featured on the local Bradford radio, who do a podcast section every Friday at midday, and it was on there, which was great. To get mentioned outside the wargaming world is pretty amazing. So any new listeners who picked up the show from that, welcome. I'm not sure what you'll make of today's show, but there we go. So today's guests, Nick and Rich from Toofatlardies, have done many, many podcasts over the years. So I was very keen to try and concentrate on things that maybe they hadn't talked about in other places and not talk about upcoming rule sets and all that sort of stuff. So Rich has not been on the show before, so I got him to do a lot of the features stuff that Nick had already done on his previous appearances, but Nick weighed in with his opinion on many of those answers that Rich gave. So sit back and get yourself a cup of tea. It's another 3-hour job. It's broken up into 4 sections if you want to take it a chunk at a time, but get your painting ready. Setting off on a long journey, make sure you've got some drink and whatever, and some blankets because it's winter time. But sit back, get ready, because here come the Toofatlardies. Without further ado, here's the interview. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 50 of the Yorkshire Gamers Elite Big War Games podcast. And it's the Golden Jubilee episode today. The street is full, the party is in full swing, lashings of trifle with mushy peas are available for all. There's an all-day bar with ferrets from 2 o'clock, and Amos from Emmerdale Farm is judging the pies at 3. Back in episode 25, the Silver Jubilee, I spoke to my old friend Stephen Barker about the halcyon days of my wargaming youth. Today, for the 50th, I've got 2 equally special guests. Described recently on a Wargames forum as a right pair of... Oh, sorry, that's my spelling. It's cultists. That's an L, not an N. I am personally looking forward to being initiated into the cult of lard, and I hope later on that we will be invoking some incantations, sacrificing a 1980s 15mm Napoleonic minifigs unit, and reincarnating some average dice. There have been many dynamic duos over the years, Batman and Robin, Little and Large, Rod Hull and Emu, Chaz and Dave, but not many have had such a massive impact on the world of wargaming. But sadly, the Perry twins aren't available, so I've got these 2. They're known as the king of the activation cards, the link in the chain of command, the infamy in the infamy, and also the itchy bit of friction. But above and beyond that, they are now World Cup winners. The first in England since 1966. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new Sir Alf Ramsey and Harold Shepardson, if you remember him, of Wargaming. It's Rich and Nick from Toofatlardies. Hey! Hello, guys.
All right. I can't believe we're here, mate. It's amazing the way we've been transported here due to your high-tech sci-fi equipment, like beaming up to the Starship Enterprise, but full of full of best bitter and mushy peas. It's been a remarkable experience so far, and we can only hope that things can only get better.
That was quite a build-up you gave us there, Ken. I've had 2 cups of tea, a slice of toast, and I'm on my second breakfast now. So, yeah, we've been called lots of things, but never all of those things.
Never all of those.
Well, all of those, yes, but not at the same time.
No.
Yeah, the itchy bit of friction I was particularly proud of.
Well, yeah, I imagine you would be.
I've got a cream for it, mate. I can send you some. Right.
I hope it's Toofatlardies branded itchy friction cream.
It is, but don't sit on cold walls.
Yeah.
That's my top medical tip of the day.
Thank you very much
Sidney's
for that.
own aloe vera formulation.
No, she is actually. She was from Leeds, wasn't she, Vera? Despite the fact living in Weatherfield, Vera Duckworth was actually a Yorkshire lass.
She was.
You've done your research, mate, haven't you? Straight to the top of the class.
Yeah.
Has he Googled famous people from Yorkshire before the show? Is that what we're saying?
No, my wife loved Coronation Street during the 1980s. She doesn't watch it anymore, largely because I never let her out the wardrobe. But she used to love Coronation Street. And Jack and Vera, really, in many ways, they are emblems for life. If you couldn't find something that they hadn't experienced, you'll probably never experience it yourself. So those the days I look back on fondly with my wife watching shite on television, as opposed to the shite she watches on television now.
It's much more of a Jack Sugden and Molly Sugden here. It's more of an Emmerdale.
Oh, Emmerdale. My nan liked Emmerdale, but she was insane.
That's reasonable. I can understand that. There's not much else to do up the Dales.
No.
Fair.
Last time I watched Emmerdale, it was Emmerdale Farm. I don't know what happened to the farm bit.
Yeah.
They
sold out, mate. They sold out.
Yeah. Plane crashes and all sorts of weird shit going on now, so I just don't watch it.
No, I don't. I must admit.
So, you two have done thousands of podcasts, so you don't need any introduction more further than what I've done, or any pointers of what to say. Nick, you've been on the show before, back in a long time ago, episode 7.
Really? That long ago?
That long ago.
We were both young men then, Ken.
In fact, I listened to your quiz a couple of minutes before we started, because obviously Rich is going to have a go at the quiz later on, and I wanted to make sure that it was a fair comparison. So I've had to drop one of the newer questions because you got one of the older questions. So
I get second-hand questions, eh? Right, nice to know.
You're in for a treat, Rich. You know that bit on the SAS program where they take them into a room with a bag on their head? That's what's coming your way, mate.
It's brilliant. So, Rich, it's your first time on, mate. So, the first thing that we do with new guests, after the torture, obviously, is we do a thing called the 4-minute challenge, and that's your attempt to summarise your wargaming history in 4 minutes or less. Now, I'm not putting any pressure on you, but Nick's was brilliant.
Well, mine won't be. When do you want me to start? Is there a big clock, and does it go do-do-do-do-do-do-do, boo?
Yeah, it used to, but I've bloody lost it. It won't work through this stupid new super expensive microphone, so I have to wave at you and point at
So what do you want to know? What do I have to give you in 4 minutes? My life story, life at the start.
A summary of your wargaming history as best as you can.
While you do that, I'm going to go and let my dog out, which will take me about 3 minutes, 30 seconds. So I'm looking forward to missing it completely.
Probably the best. I'm going to let my dog out as well and just let him go for it. Right.
Is this a euphemism?
So when you're ready, 3, 2, 1, off you go.
Okay, well, the first toys I ever remember having were military toys. I was kind of at that generation where my dad had served in the Royal Air Force in the Second World War. My granddad was wounded at Passchendaele, first day of Third Eep. So kind of the age of, children shouldn't have war toys didn't really exist in our house. In fact, I think the first thing I got for my 5th birthday was a Lee Enfield 303 rifle. But so war toys were very much part of my childhood growing up. And I started off throwing things at them. I got to the age where I could build airfix planes. And, of course, some people stuck them with drawing pins on their ceiling with bits of string. I didn't. I packed them full of fireworks, threw them out the window, and watched them explode in midair, which was far more exciting. And you were unlikely to be attacked by a Ju-88 at 3 o'clock in the morning when it fell out the ceiling, which seemed a much more sensible idea. So from there, really, when I was 11, I went in the school library. We were on the first day at big school, and they said, have a look around the library. Anyway, I was looking at a book called The Red Badge of Courage, which was about the American Civil War, and next to it was a book called Wargames Campaigns. I don't know who the librarian was, but I think they were probably drunk or something like that, because they weren't really using a very good system. But I opened this book, and there was Don Featherstone's black and white pictures of plasticine hills and marmalade skies. And it was like, bloody hell, I've got these toy soldiers, but all I do is blow them up and throw rocks at them. So I read it, most amazing experience of my life, discovered I could do this, and then found nobody to wargame with. When I was 18, there was an advert in a military modelling magazine saying, Wargames Club setting up near you. Why don't you come and join us? So I went along to the local Wargames Club, and I'm still going there to this day.
Brilliant.
So it's been a few years. I've just moved to the area in St Albans in Hertfordshire, and I was poor as a church mouse because I'd just got a mortgage. And going to a club was a great way to do things that was cheap as chips. So I went along, started playing with toy soldiers. It was a type of club where they expected you to design your own games, design your own scenarios, design your own rules. So I started doing that. And at some point, I met some really hideously ugly individual with a face like a giant squished tomato. And that, it turned out, was Nick Skinner. And at some point in the 90s, we ran a scenario together, and that ended up as going, these rules are awful, let's write our own right here and now, like Kids from Fame, but with 28mm figures. And that's where it began, and kind of here I am today. Last time I looked, I was 32, but last month, a couple of months ago, I was 60. God knows how, and I still look 32. Anyway, that's me, Ken, that's it.
Brilliant.
Have I finished early? The wife says I usually do.
Yeah, you have. Another set of people are disappointed. Oh, excellent. Thank you very much for that. And that kind of reminds me of an ongoing theme of people of our age. And that if there was a wargaming serial killer around in the 70s, they would have preyed on hundreds of people. Because I met some random person in the library and ended up going to some dodgy church hall in the middle of nowhere and playing war games. But I could have been abducted and worse. Robbie Roddis.
The Brunamond Library.
Yeah.
I know it well. I know the library. I went to that very library and found a note in a book. We've got a War Games club here.
That'll be me.
Was me. Yeah, no, well, I contacted a fellow who knows you, actually. I met him again. I met him again at Colours this year after a gap of many, many years.
Yeah. That'll be Steve Barker, I bet that was.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Oh. Well, he was on the 25th episode, so...
I'll have to go back through, I'll have listened to it, but I didn't realise it was him. So there we go. Yeah.
Richard, I'm horrified to know that you used to blow up Airfix models. I remember I was the kid who used to hang them from the ceiling with drawing pins.
There you go.
And dream about them as I drifted off to sleep. I remember going to Germany on the German exchange, and I met my friend's friend, and he blew up a Hawker Hurricane with a firecracker, and I was horrified, absolutely disgusted at the prospect of it. So good job I didn't meet you then. We might have had fisticuffs.
Yeah. Shabby Nazi trick, mate. But that's what things are for, mate. Blowing up.
Yeah.
Or drinking. There's only two things in life.
Yeah. I wasn't allowed anything firework related after an incident on a railway bank with I'm not going to mention any further.
I think the truth of it is you weren't allowed sharp objects, which is why you couldn't pin your models into the ceiling. That would be my take.
Yeah.
I was so short in those days I couldn't reach the ceiling, believe it or not. I had a huge growing spurt at 29. I was only 2'11" up to that point.
Well, excellent. There is a kind of a schedule for the show, and with these two guys, I'm reckoning that I'm going to get absolutely nowhere near it. But after the last oddcast, listening to Sydney's 7 golden pillars of wisdom.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
No.
I thought,
Well, that's what Sid's like, mate. That's what Sid's like. It's his first step in interrogation to make you not aware. I don't understand where I am. I don't understand the world anymore. And once your brain is so befuddled, he asks you difficult questions like, "What do you think of glazed washes?" and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's an interrogation technique he learnt in Moscow.
Ah, very good. Well, that's where the red trousers come from, then, is it?
It's an old flag, actually. That's right.
Oh, dear me. So I thought we'd start off with a kind of a where things are at the moment with yourselves in terms of promoting the hobby, because the pair of you have kind of taken it on your own bat to get out there and fly the flag for wargaming, and you've been back up at the Hartenstein, and Nick, you were on the show last time you'd been up there. So I'm guessing the beer's good and the food's good. But other than that, how was your second time round?
It was good. I mean, the first time was really special. The second time was a bit more targeted because we knew all the best restaurants and all the best bars to go to.
Yeah.
So that made the evenings a lot easier. I guess the thing is, people keep asking us to do stuff, and the trouble is, we keep saying yes.
Yeah.
So that's part of the challenge with that. This time round, we had a different group of people at the Hartenstein. Well, mostly the same group, but we had like a 20% change of personnel just because of some people couldn't make that weekend, and our German companions were unable to join us. So we had a slightly different mix to the team this time round. Took 3 tables, took 2 tables of Chain of Command and 1 table of Water Tanker. The Dutch guys were quite keen to run something that could engage the younger visitors to the museum a bit more. So they did a 15mm game of Water Tanker, which was really interesting and good fun actually too. So I thought at first that they must be crazy. How would that fit in that environment? But actually it worked really, really well, and they did a great job at running it, and engagement was excellent. So I think for next year, Rich and I have kind of project managed it for the last couple of years with some input from the cloggies. Next year, I think we need to, a bit more from them and a bit less from us would be good, because it's just really expensive to just commit to it all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say you're kind of giving up a huge chunk of your time, and also a huge amount of build up as well, and it's not a commercial venture for you, is it? You're not taking a stand full of Lardies branded gear to flog. You kind of it's kind of an altruistic promotion of the hobby. Good on you for doing that. And you also did the We Have Ways festival as well.
Yeah, well, that was again, we were asked to do it, so it was the same kind of thing, really. It's a bit like that bit in Zulu where the guy says, "Why us?" and the guy says, "Well, because we're here, son." And that's kind of what it felt like, or I think what it does still feel like. It's lovely to be asked, and I think we know what we're doing with that kind of event now. But it is a big commitment. I'm taking a bit of a sabbatical at the moment because they've just been really exhausting to put these things together, because it's all the work behind the scenes to make it happen and to pull people together and to work out what you're going to do. When we did the We Have Ways Fest thing, Ken, it's the first time I've ever had to do a risk assessment and method statement for a Wargames display table, which was bonkers, really. And we could joke about some of the things that went into that method statement and some of the thinking behind it, but it was necessary to make that event happen, and it was really enjoyable to do. Really tiring. We Have Ways Fest was 9 a.m. until, well, it was almost until 7 o'clock at night, which we hadn't bargained for at all. And the team put in a sterling shift to do that. Next year, talking about the same kind of thing. I don't know what that will look like, but it's nice to be involved with these things, but they are draining to do it. I love it, but it's draining at the same time.
I think there's 2 issues, Ken, that it's really important that we hear a lot about the greying hobby and how, we're all getting older. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, but we hear it a lot, and you think, well, we've got to make sure that we're visible. We've got to make sure that people are able to see who we are. I think the Hartensteins one thing. It's an interesting one, but you're really presenting wargaming to people who are probably never ever going to wargame again, other than the people who've specifically come for the wargame. And it's great to see our European chums who do drive up for that. But I think the We Have Ways Fest, there's a kind of crossover there that those people are, if you're ever going to have a captive audience, it's there, they're locked into the event, but they've also got an interest. You know, I always say, if you want to sell tractors, speak to farmers. Don't talk to hairdressers, because they ain't going to buy one off you. So if you want to sell wargaming, talk to people who are interested in military history. Talk to people who at least have an appreciation and understanding and may have touched on it, may have seen it, might be interested, might have thought, I wonder what that is, but never had the opportunity. So I think that's the really important one of the two that hopefully we're able to get out there. And we were actually able to get up on stage and spend 45 minutes talking to an audience about just what wargaming is and what wargaming can be used for. And I think a lot of that from our point of view is about dispelling some of the myths that they might have had in terms of, you know, grown-ups playing with toy soldiers. We were trying to present it in a slightly different way in terms of, you know, it's a way to get a window on history. It's a way to understand maybe some of the command challenges. So, yeah, I think it's bloody expensive, to be honest with you, and it's not something we can, you know, we can't fly the flag for wargaming all the time on our own, and hopefully other people will see that there's some benefits to be had from it and pick that up and run with it.
I think other people are doing it, Rich. I mean, there's no question. I see other groups going around, but what we have that other people perhaps that gives us, I guess, that little edge is that we've got a bit more of a voice, a bit more of a reach. But I do see loads of people doing really good stuff, taking games to museums and other events. And the greying of the hobby thing was interesting. I saw a photo the other day on, I don't know what it was, on social media, and it was a model of the world's biggest model railway event or something was going on in Milton Keynes. And I looked at the photos of the people standing around those model railways. And if you think wargaming's got a greying population, you should have seen the faces that were stood around those train sets, because I didn't see many faces there that are under 50. Whereas when I go to these other events, you know, We Have Ways Fest at the museum, even at the wargame shows, we are seeing younger people. And I think that's really encouraging. I've got lots of energy for what the hobby's going to look like in the future, because I think there's a good flow through of people, I believe.
Yeah, just quickly going back to the hairdresser thing that Rich mentioned. There used to be hairdressers in Keighley, the posh area. No, it's not. It's a tip. Called Hair Flick. And I thought that was just fantastic. But the kids today, they wouldn't know, would they?
No,
very true, mate.
I've watched a couple of episodes of Low recently, and a couple of episodes of It Ain't Half Hot Mum, which has appeared on television, and I'm kind of going, ooh,
yeah.
Of their time.
I mentioned Benny Hill in conversation the other day, and my daughter said, "Who?"
Oh dear me.
The characters are just wonderful in those shows, though. You know, the things that come out of their mouth may be not appropriate these days for some audiences, but the caricatures were wonderful.
Absolutely fine, and beautifully played as well by the actors involved. So I think you may have kind of set a new old trend off. I remember we used to do things back in the day in odd places, not just war game shows. Is it better to target an audience to get people into wargaming through things like that, through museums, than going down to the shopping centre on a Saturday and putting a game on?
Well, I think so, because you're more likely to find people who are interested. I mean, I have, in general, if I'm honest, Ken, I have a real aversion to Jehovah's wargaming. I've always been of the opinion, if people are going to end up wargaming, they're going to find it somehow without me being a complete pillock and going around banging a drum and waving flags. But on the other hand, when Bob says opportunity knocks, will you come along to this event and fly the flag? And they've actually approached me. I'm not going to say no, but you do wonder if you might sow a few seeds. But I think the more targeted the audience is in terms of At least they know what that tank is. At least they know it's a bloody tank. Whereas if you go down the shopping centre, they might not even know that. So I mean, we used to get invited to Milton Keynes every year to the shopping centre where there was a big Wargames show outside John Lewis.
Oh, nice.
There. Would you come to the event? No, I bloody well won't. You must be kidding. I'm not going to stand there in a shopping centre playing toy soldiers. I mean, Milton Keynes actually is the breeding pits of Saruman anyway. So I don't particularly want to go there on any basis. But so no, I won't. But will I go to We Have Ways Fest? Will I go to the Airborne Museum? Well, yeah, if you ask me, I will. Yeah, but I wouldn't put myself up for it because I'm always a bit dubious of that. Showing people what they're not bloody interested in.
Yeah, we don't hunt them out. I mean, the reflection I have on my own wargaming at the moment is that I'm so busy doing these other things that actually I don't get to play on my own table with my own mates, doing my own games. I'd like to do a bit more of that. So, it's nice to be busy, but it's tiring, right?
Yeah.
Really tiring. I know it sounds like a bit of an old whinge, but they're exhausting, some of these things, mentally and physically. And just never mind the drinking that might go on afterwards.
God forbid.
The drinking is essential, obviously. I think it's coming to light, and I think you guys have kind of pushed a half-open door further open. I've been approached to do something at the Military Museum in Chester with the Cheshire Regiment. I think it's out there now. I think there's more people who are aware of the potential for it, and hopefully there'll be more people who are prepared to, like you guys have done, to volunteer their time to go out and do something, and not necessarily being a sales pitch for a product, but being a sales pitch for the hobby in general.
Well, let's be honest. As far as museums concerned, it's a free event to run. We don't charge them to go to their museum and run a war game. It might or might not bring more people in the door to the museum, which gains them a bit more admission money. So they've got nothing to lose by giving it a go, have they? They're more and more interested in outreach and how they can bring more people in through the door, and it's just one way that they can try and do that.
So, just to kind of stay on the same subject, but move slightly away from the events themselves. And I thought it would be a good idea to ask you guys what you found as exhibitors was the thing that the general public were most interested in, and what's a good thing for people who want to do this sort of thing at a military museum, etc. What people come and ask you about?
The table. They want a good-looking table. If your table doesn't look good, they won't get involved at all. And now that might be a million figures, or it might be a dozen beautifully built buildings, or it might be, one eye-catching thing at the centre of it, big model of Henry VIII or whatever. But there's got to be something visually that draws them in. Once you draw them in visually, they will start asking questions and talking to you. If it doesn't look good, you might as well piss off.
What we're presenting really is a living diorama, isn't it, for them? It used to be that you go to a museum and you'd see a diorama of the Dieppe raid that was made, somebody had put together, and you could stand there staring at it for ages. And all we're doing actually is bringing that diorama out from behind the case and putting it in a space where you can move the figures around. Plus, the guy who made the diorama is standing next to you. So you can say to him, what am I looking at? And he will explain it all. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah. So people are interested then in the visual spectacle of what you've got to offer, rather than the mechanisms of the game. For example, you will see at a war game show a very bland table with maybe even just cardboard counters on, and the game might be brilliant, but the visual spectacle doesn't draw me into it. It might draw others in, but that's what the public want to see. They want the visual experience rather than the game experience.
Well, it's what pulls them in, isn't it? Imagine you're standing in a crowded bar and there are two people across the way and they both make eye contact with you. One of them looks wonderful and luscious and appealing in many, many ways, and the other one looks like Richard Clarke. Which one are you going to go?
Is Mrs. Riley in the bar at the same time?
I'm not making any comments or making any assumptions about sexuality, but if you see something that draws you in, you're more likely to go and talk to it than you are to something that repels you. So we've got to make something that attracts people, and that's the visual thing first and foremost. And then after that, you can let all the cats out the bag about what you're really doing.
That's exactly true. That's exactly true. Once they are engaged, and that's the hook. So it's like a fishing line. You've got a hook. Once they're on the hook, once they're on the line, then you can have that conversation about what the game is about, how it works. We had a lot of guys there from the Dutch military. They came and had a look because it's visual, and then they stayed and have a conversation because it's technical.
Agree that.
Did it get to the stage with people where they were having a go, or were you encouraging people to roll some dice? How did that work?
Very much so. Some people look at it and wonder what on earth is going on. So I would just say to them something like, "What are you thinking?" And they would ask some questions about it. And then I'd say, "Well, do you want to have a go?" I'd explain it a bit and say, "Do you want to have a go?" They say, "No, it's okay." I say, "Well, all right then. But here's the situation. I've got the group of guys in this house, and I want to try and get down this road. What do you think I should do?" Okay. Well, roll me a dice then to see how far they go, and then you can get them to roll 1 or 2 dice. And then if you can kind of get them to pop their cherry in that way, if you like, then they kind of get into the cycle of what the game's all about. They can enjoy it a little bit.
Yes. And then there'll no longer be wargaming virgins.
Correct.
Touch for the very first time, Ken.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Could write a song about it.
Good, mate.
So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people want to come along. Some people do want to come along and play from the beginning, and they say, "Can I have a go?" But others are a bit more reticent, a bit more nervous about it, maybe, or feel that they might make a fool of themselves. So we just look after them a bit.
So there's the age-old argument that many times and many shows have covered about wargaming display games and interacting with the public. And at those shows, you're interacting with people who are 90% wargamers, aren't you? So is the level of public engagement that you would expect from a game in these circumstances much, much higher?
The importance of us being outward facing is much, much higher. At a wargame show, I could be running the game. I could turn back to the table, I could be running the game, and somebody will come up and go, "Ooh, that's a nice tank, where did you buy it?" Or, "I like your hedges," or whatever. If you've got your back to the general public at an event like this, they are not going to say anything to you. They're going to carry on and go and look at the medals in the next room. So you've got to make sure that if somebody is running a game, as I was at some points in time, you've got other people around the table who are greeters, meeters and greeters, who are there to engage with those people and have those conversations that Nick was having. What are you thinking? What do you reckon? Do you recognise this area? How did you get here today? I don't know if you came down that road, but this is the big house you can see over there, type of thing. You've got to be outward facing. If you're not, you've lost your audience. So it is different. I would suggest, and actually, Ken, this is something we might be touching on a bit later on, mate, but I'll keep that in my little tucker bag for now. If you're running a game at any Wargames event, you should be outward facing. But at this event, you've got to be even more so. This type of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of, you're doubling down, aren't you? Because at a Wargame show, you will get people who will come up to you at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and go, "No, it's bloody moved. It's rubbish. This you're not playing the game." Yeah, because I'm talking to people like you idiot. So there's not that pressure, is there, at these public-facing events where you really aren't there to play the game? Whereas some people, I'm not going to say a lot, some people will go to a wargame show to play their game.
I would actually say, funnily enough, at the games at Arnhem, we made a point of making sure that the games kept going all day long. Yeah, and people could see what was happening, because otherwise it's a static display, and the museum is absolutely rammed wall to wall of static displays, none of which capture people's imaginations. But if you've got something that is animated, where things are constantly happening all day long, where people are doing things, that draw people. If there's a fight in the street, people come over, not because they like fighting, but because something is happening.
And we have Wave Fest was a little bit different again in that regard. We played, I don't know how many. Well, I do know. I think we played something like 19 games, and maybe this is going up by one each time.
It is, mate. It is, yeah.
But less than 20, but more than 15 games.
It's like the number of pints I have. Every time I retell the story, I've had another one.
I know it was less than 20. I know it's more than 15, and that's how many games. So we were playing games, back to back. People were lining up to play it, which was really, really lovely. So we actually played more, not less. Interestingly,
yeah, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. Well, I hope this is just one of a small number of things that will spur people on to do this on behalf of the hobby and bring more people in, because that's what we would like at the end of the day. Do you think that the word or war gaming is an issue for the not for us, but for the general public, in terms of bringing people in, that concept of a game and it being linked to war? We all can separate the two items and look at the historical perspective, but from an outsider's point of view, do you think that the name can be an issue?
I've only encountered it once, but I did wonder if we would encounter it more. And of course, you don't know what people don't say. There are people who might just move past and not be drawn in.
Yeah.
But I only have one person who asked me about that. I made the point that you said about actually wargamers are hugely respectful of the history and what we're doing, and probably understand it in a much deeper and highly respectful, relevant way. I guess it's a hard one to have, really, isn't it? Some people, see it as you're playing this and it's a game, and yet thousands of people die. What's all that about?
We had a situation at our club many years ago. We've been meeting at a community centre for years, since 1983, so 40 years. And they had a big community centre open day once in the late 80s, and they asked us to come along and do a demonstration of what we did. So the people who did weaving baskets or whatever, they were weaving their baskets, and the people who did jiu-jitsu were kicking each other in the bollocks over there, and they asked us to do wargaming. So we were doing a wargaming, and one of the people who was on the committee of the hall was actually horrified at what we were doing, absolutely horrified, and asked for us to be banned from the centre. And we weren't banned from the centre, but they took us off all of their literature, and they never invited us to their open day again. So there are people who are very, very sensitive to that. And I think largely that's based on a position of ignorance. They're not really understanding what we're doing. They're assuming that we're making light of people being killed and civilians being killed and children being killed. And that's not the case at all. But they don't want to be informed because they've got a preconceived idea. They know what they want to think, and that's what they're going to think. Well, my answer is bollocks. I don't really care what you think. You're not interested anyway. You're not my target audience. Piss off.
And that was an early entry into Wargames Room 101. I love it.
It's true, isn't it?
I love a rant. I love a rant. Oh, but yes, I'm very much the same up here in Leeds when we were moving into our new premises and we were filling paperwork out for the council. There was very much a discussion of, do we kind of front up to what we do, or do we call ourselves an historical military society or something along those lines? Because when the military use it, they tend to refer to it as conflict simulation or something along those lines. They remove that game aspect of it.
They do. Well, some militaries do. Ours does.
And some are just quite happy with the fact war gaming.
It's more about, it says more about their preconceived ideas than about what we do.
Right, so that was a nice little opening section. We've only done 35 minutes, so we'll find out in the second part what Sid's rules are and how many we've broken already. But before we do, we've got to keep on with Rich and doing the features that Nick's already done. So we're going to enter the Venn diagram of wargaming. And this is a section where we just talk about how the various parts of the hobby, because it's quite wide ranging, fit in for you personally and what's most important for you. So, wargamer, painter, collector, historian. How do you fit in with that, Rich?
Well, I hate painting. I absolutely hate painting. I hate modelling. I loathe it. It's a means to an end. It's interesting, of the three of us, I'm the one sat here while we're recording this, sticking bits together and making bits and pieces. Not because I enjoy doing it, because I've got to get it done.
Right.
I absolutely loathe modelling and I absolutely hate painting, but I don't believe you can have unpainted figures on the table, so I've got to do it.
Yeah.
It's the cost. It's the cost of getting in. If you want to go and see the film, you've got to pay. You've got to pay at the entrance to the cinema. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm definitely, but that is a means to an end. It doesn't give me very much pleasure. I do quite like a bit of kit bashing if I'm doing something interesting. I don't like plastic figures, but I love the way plastic figures allow you to kit bash, change heads and whatever. I'm just doing these Renaissance people, and I went in the workshop. I've got this huge
look at that.
box of sprues out, all bits and pieces. Some of them Roman, some of them Renaissance, some of them medieval, and I'm going to do a load of head swaps and head changes and things like that. So I quite enjoy doing that because it means I've got unique units. But I enjoy it as in, if I've got to do it, I might as well do it and make it a bit interesting. I'd rather not do it at all. I'd rather put out the figures on my desk when I go to bed at night. And when I come down in the morning, the elves have painted them and they're all there. And if I had to do that, I'd never, ever paint another figure again. Am I a collector? No, although I don't sell out. I never sell anything that I paint. I did once. We put together a fabulous squadron of long-range desert group in 28mm for a game called, scenario called Operation H, which was behind the lines in the desert, destroying Rommel's hemorrhoid cream supplies with a long-range desert group. And I thought, I really liked them. We had all the trucks in 28mm, but they were quite big. And I thought, I'm going to have to sell them because they don't fit in. And I got less than the lead value. And I had spent forever painting these things up, and we won a prize at Salute and whatever. But I got almost nothing for it. But so I am a collector in as much as I don't want to chuck them out, because I know as soon as I get rid of an army, I'll think, I've got a great idea for a set of rules. Oh, bollocks, I got rid of that army. I'll have to paint it again. And I hate painting, so I don't want to do that. So I'm a gamer and a historian, and the two are so interwoven in my mind. I can't really separate the two. For example, we went down to Driel, just south of Arnhem, to look at the actions involving the Polish paratroopers who dropped in there. And all the time we're doing that battlefield walk, I'm thinking, okay, that's scenario 1 over there. This is scenario 2 over here. That'll be scenario 3 over here. And the two are completely interwoven. So if you have a Venn diagram with 4 bits, I'm in 2 of them, and I never go in the other ones unless I have to. It's a bit like really awful pubs. You only go in there if the trains aren't running and you can't go somewhere else.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Rich. And we shall have a quick break, and we shall be back for part 2 very shortly. Okay, we're back in the room for part 2. The older members of the audience have had time to have a quick wee and come back, and we're in the room. And the second part of the show is always our big game chat. But before we do that, I was listening to the last oddcast. Yes, I do listen to other podcasts, but only after I've listened to Yorkshire Gamer. To be fair, after I've recorded these, I don't listen to them because I've recorded them. I've edited them, and I listen back to them as a whole before it goes out. And it's like, I know this inside out. I don't want to hear this again.
You've heard it 3 times. That's enough. Never again.
Yeah, exactly. But on that podcast, the lovely Sidney came up with 7 rules for podcasting, which I was a little bit perplexed. Not perplexed. It was just, I thought, shall I be thinking about all of that? So I know you guys went through it on your show, but I think it might be interesting for me to have a go at them. So Rich, you've got them up on the screen there.
I have.
So I think, was the first one purpose?
Yeah, I think what he was saying there was, what's the point of your podcast? And think about what the point of your podcast is. So if your podcast is about how painting, then you'll say something different to if your podcast is about promoting your board game, or if your podcast is about having a load of guests on. So what's the point in you being here, Ken? Let me ask you, mate. I'm in the interviewer's chair now. What is your raison d'être, as they would say in La Belle France?
Well, it's always started off as me trying to enthuse people about the bigger game, about going back to those Peter Gilder massive tables, loads of figures, because in my mind it just kind of fell out of the media spotlight within wargaming. And I honestly got to the point where I thought, there's gangs of this coming out and such and such, and you only need 10 figures. And and I'm sat there, I'm going, am I the only one who still does this? And me and the guys who come round to my house and play big games on big tables, we can't be the only ones left. That was my purpose initially, was to do that, and that's still the main kind of drive behind it. But since then,
Sid's right. So Sid is right. You fulfilled your purpose. You knew what your purpose was. You've stuck to the purpose over 50 episodes. You've got your half century. They're applauding in the pavilion because not only have you had a purpose, you've stuck to it. Well, so Sid's right so far. Sydney is right. There's even a broken clock is right twice a day. though, so we'll see whether he continues.
But I have tried diversify with I've done the paintbrush episode and the Papal Zouave episode, which were not war games related at all. But it was a historian and a guy who makes paintbrushes, which I found absolutely fascinating. But to have that ability, and then I do the Brews in the Binyard episodes, which are just chaos.
They're good fun.
So I've tried to diversify to keep people interested and not have the same format that becomes stale and boring.
Yeah, I like Alex comes up from the Midlands to do it with you. That's excellent.
He does, yeah.
So scripting, scripting. Do you script, mate? Do you script or not to script?
I don't know what does scripting mean, like directions. Nick enters from the left.
No.
And so I mean, I've sent you guys what I send to every single person is kind of a list of topics.
That's what we would call scripting. So Sid will say, "Here's me." He'll say, "Hello, welcome to the show," and then he'll say, "Welcome." And he'll say, what stupid names is he going to call us today? So, welcome to the Morecambe and Wise of Wargaming, Nick Skinner and Richard Clark. And then it'll just say waffle.
Yeah.
And so, really, all he does is produce some sort of show notes to tell us what the big issue is going to be. But even things like what's going to be the best bit on the bench, we never script that. That's just covered by the term waffle. So what we got from you is pretty much the same thing as we get from Sid. So that I think you are scripting it in as much as you don't want to. We're not shooting episode 47 of Dallas. We don't need to know exactly what we're going to say. So Sid's right twice. So
but it's where passion counts, though, Rich, isn't it? I mean, I listened to a podcast the other day about psychology, and it was so obvious that the whole thing was scripted. Because it was a conversation between two people, but it was such a stilted, dry conversation. It lost all the passion. I think if you're getting people onto your podcast tend to talk about things that are passionate to them, then actually, that passion should come through. You can't script passion.
No.
If you can't talk for 5 minutes about something you're passionate about, then you're not passionate about it. So I think that's really important. It's scripted is a structure, not a kind of line by line Shakespeare version.
Yeah,
Milad, I would proffer.
You've got to remember that for a large part of my adult life, I've been sitting in a room with somebody who's just said no comment for 2 hours. So to have people talking back is it's rather nice.
As long as you don't push us down a metal staircase, Ken, and claim that we got hurt accidentally, that's fine.
It's Dave Brown who's in the Met, not me.
Leave it out, you slag.
I thought that was a reflection on your married life, Ken, when you're in the room, somebody says no comment every 5 minutes.
No, that doesn't last 5 minutes. Right, so next script.
Duration. Do you think about how long you can keep it up for, Ken?
Well, I have this little blue pill that keeps me going for hours and hours and hours. I used to try and keep it under 2 hours, and then I found that I was having a really good conversation, and people were saying to me, "Oh, I love painting when I'm listening to your podcast. I don't care how long it is."
I totally agree. That's exactly what I think, and I'm always surprised when people say, "Oh, we really want it to be 25 minutes long or whatever," and you think you can't really cover we couldn't even cover the big issue in that time, let alone what are you doing, where have you been, what's your project, where's the best bit on the bench. We couldn't even do the introduction for 25 minutes. So I'm like you. I just think, well, if it's 3 hours long and I'm painting today for an hour, I'll paint tomorrow for half an hour, and at some point it will come to an end. Yeah. It's a bit like an audio book. You don't think, oh, I wish that book was 40 minutes long.
No, I think
it wouldn't be much to read.
I think it's the interviewer's job. Job's a bit of a strong word, but to lead the conversation and to know when, great, we're finished, we've had enough. And that might be an hour and a half when I'm talking with the guy who makes paintbrushes, or it might be 3 hours with the one I did with Dave Brown. It just depends. If there's something to talk about and the audience are interested, then there's a pause button.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I think the comment that you saw was from America. Is that right? About them? Oh my God, they do 2 hours.
Yeah, that's right. And that was bollocks. We never do 2 or 3 hours. It was the comment that people used to make about meeples and miniatures when that was on. Oh my God! And Henry on View from the Veranda. You had to take your sleeping bag when you were going to listen to that because he used to go on for several days. But I enjoyed it. Yeah. It didn't bother me how long it was. It was great.
Yeah, exactly. And let's face it, if you're American, you can leave the first hour and 45 minutes, turn up for the last 15 minutes and take the glory. Oh, did I say that?
You may say that. I couldn't possibly comment, Ken. You naughty boy.
Although I did very much enjoy a World War One an American World War One wargaming podcast, which was funny to say the least. But there we go. Alex Sutherland has got the beef with that particular one. So what's next?
Oh, content. What can I? This is Sidney's notes. How do I keep it topical? What can I say that is interesting? Well, you're thinking about that because we've just won 2 World Wars and 1 World Cup, and we've been asked on because of our topicality. We are the men of the moment.
Are we indeed?
Oh, my dog's arrived. He believes so. Hello, Freddie. Say hello.
I think if there is a weakness with my podcast, it's topicality, because I have my guest plans so far in the future that if something comes up, it's very hard for me to slip in a quick one while everything else is going on. So it's my podcast is not very reactive. It's not a news podcast. It's not a up-to-date things podcast. I mean, Jesus. I mean, George Nafsinger, 76, I think he was. He's not the latest news, George, but I'm keen to record some of those older voices, if you like.
Yeah. Well,
that explains why we're on.
I think this comes back to purpose, mate. You do what you want to do. And if people want to join you on that journey, that's great. And the fact that so many people do tells you you're doing something right. And bollocks to the naysayers.
Exactly. That's what I say. In fact,
it's variety, isn't it? People like a structure. I think people like to have, they know the segments of the podcast, but they don't know each time exactly what you're going to be discussing. So it's like we do best bit on the bench.
Yeah.
You know that best bit on the bench is there. It's nice to have the structure for best bit on the bench, but you don't know what we're going to talk about on best bit of the bench. And to be honest, neither do we. Till 5 minutes beforehand most of the time.
Yeah, I mean the quiz has been going since day one, and they're virtually the same questions, but each one of them is a mini conversation starter. And some episodes we might just go straight past a question, and other episodes we might be talking about fish and chip shops in Skipton for 10 minutes. I really don't mind.
I love things like the quizzes. I think they're great fun. I mean, we've got one called the defenestration of lard, which is the same as which really is the Room 101. So what idea do you want to chuck out the window? of wargaming, and I love it. We've only done it once because we hardly have any guests.
I think he did it twice, maybe 3 times, did he?
It's brilliant. I've done all. I did all the theme music and everything. It was fabulous. Evil laughter, the whole lot. You hear somebody being thrown out the window. It's brilliant. But we've only done it once, whereas you can do it in every show, and I love that bit. I think they're really funny.
So what's the next one? Where are we up to? Number?
Guests. When to have guests and when not to have guests. Well, that's a question more for us because we rarely have them. So when do we bring them in? But you do it all the time, and I think what you do as well is that you have a variety of guests. I mean, I know you got this Nick and I on, and we turn up to the opening of a paper bag with a
crisp packet.
Yeah. Whereas you get guests on who aren't on the merry-go-round of wargaming and who appear everywhere, and people go, "Oh Christ, not those two bloody idiots again." You get people on talking about brushes. Now it's a bit like the Women's Institute. My missus will go to the Village Women's Institute, and I'll go, "What did they have on this evening?" They had a chimney sweep telling us about chimney sweeping. And I said, "For Christ's sake," and she'll go, "Actually, it was really interesting." And she has a point. You wouldn't want to hear about chimney sweeps every week, but you might want to hear about them once because it's something you've never even thought about or whatever. So the guy who does brushes might do chimneys with them, but you'll have to ask him
very slowly.
Yeah, it's. I think I chose at the start to have it guest based because I didn't want to. Sometimes I can get. I've got wargame stories, 40 years of wargame stories, but how long can I tell them on my own without asking somebody else? And some podcasts where it's not you guys. I have to say I remain interested in what you do because you do those areas that are new every time. But sometimes when you're listening to the same guys with the same opinions about the same games every week, it can. I think that has a limited lifespan to the podcast. Whereas if each one has a different guest, you might go, "Oh, I don't want to listen to Dave Brown. I don't like him." Obviously, you two won't listen to that one, but he didn't slag you off. He didn't slag you off much. He was
no. Well, I did listen to it actually, and I know that there were legions of housewives out there listening to their favourites. So that's always good. But I tell you what, you raise a really good point. I mean, I've listened to podcasts where people are talking about their own product all the time. One of the things we really don't do very much on the podcast is talk about Toofatlardies products. We tend to be just talking about the hobby generally, and I think that's a conscious decision. It's not a bloody advertising, it's not a paid for advert type program. Hey, do you like shoes? If so, Toofatlardies shoes are the best shoes in town. That's not what we're about, We're just interested in talking about wargaming, and I think that keeps it relevant. And I think the way you do it is the same approach. Who would be interesting? Yeah. Who would be interesting to have on, and you get on a variety of guests as a result. So I think you all these rules you're doing them, mate, without knowing it. You it's almost
I'm
like
surprising myself here.
Yeah, it's like that program Kung Fu. You're already the master without going through the novice sort of levels. You're already there. You've got the power within you. Listener input, though, Ken, do you ever get any? And if so, you're in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Yorkshiremen are not famous for respecting the views of other people. I say what I like and I like what I say. Do you get listener input, and how do you respond to it, Ken?
They do. I have a few people who come and go, "It's all right, that lad. It's all right." And that is the equivalent of a platinum medal. If anyone in Yorkshire says to you, "It's all right, that lad. It's all right," then you do pretty well. I have to say, similar to yourselves, I get feedback, but I get less feedback than I would think from the numbers of people who listen. And you can clearly see that from the number of downloads and the number of views on YouTube, etc. You can physically count that, but the amount of actual interaction is fairly limited, and I'll get more interaction at a show speaking to people who will come up and say, "Oh, listen to the podcast, it's a lot of shit," and then I punch them, and then they say, "Oh yeah, it's brilliant." Actually, there's that aspect, But I'll maybe get 4, 5, 6 comments on the audio one, and a similar amount on the YouTube. Just general questions, really. I think there is a limited amount of feedback, and when you guys were talking about that on the oddcast, I was going, yeah, exactly the same for me.
Yeah. But in a way, that is good that people aren't throwing rocks at you in the street, because that's the type of feedback that you really know what they think. And it's also good that people would metaphorically throw rocks at you if they really hated what you were doing. They put in your notes, Ken, that's shite. Stop doing it. The fact they're not doing it is an implicit buy-in signal that they are enjoying it. Surely, I don't know, Nick, you're the psychobabble expert.
Well, I was the thing that's in my head is that it's about restaurants. You know, if you have a negative restaurant experience, you are 8 times more likely to tell people about that experience than you are about an okay or good one. So I think,
is that based on your 8 meals a day?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. My 8 breakfast. When I get to the 7th breakfast, I'm ready to give a bit of negative feedback. But generally, by the 8th one, I'm back on track again. So I guess what that means is that the fire alarm's going off. We should all get out. No,
Rich's trousers are on fire.
It must be time for 7th breakfast.
My Conti alarm. I'm having so much fun, Ken. I've nearly weeped myself.
It's the moisture detector that's gone off. So I think what that means is that negative comments are overrepresented. Therefore, because people, if they hate it, you tend to get extreme views on one end. People hate it, and they tend to be balanced out by other extreme views on the other end who think you're the best thing since sliced bread. And what you get in the middle of that is the silent majority, mate. Absolutely, people that everything's all right, quite happy with it, like it, keep listening. Recommend it to other people. I think that's what we get quite a lot of in those comments. It's like on Twitter, isn't it? We were saying about this, Rich, the other day. You only get extreme views one way or the other. You don't tend to get moderate views on social media. It's an extremist place.
So we did guests. What's next?
I don't know, Ken. I've my dog's been whinging, and I've been too busy trying to find out. Guess is listener input. We did that as well. We did that as well. Editing. Now, I'm not going to read out Sid's comment about editing. So when we did Purpose, he said, "What do you want to say?" And then he said, "Script, controlling what you say, how to keep it relevant." And when it came to editing, he said, "Bleep knows." So he literally has no clue about editing because I do it all. So I suppose the answer is, do you edit with a heavy hand, or do you accept the fact that Richard Clark has just said something rude and leave it in there? Or I don't know. I don't really know what he means.
Yeah, I very rarely edit a big chunk of content. I will tend to cut out a few coughs and splutters, and if somebody's like I do, I can be like a 50cc moped trying to get started with a thought sometimes, and it'll take me and then I'll come in with what I'm going to say, and I might cut that down a little bit to make me look cleverer than what I actually am.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. To be fair, I don't care. But and then occasionally, a couple of times, somebody has said something, and they've kind of reflected on it later on and gone, you know what, I'm not too keen with that going out, and fair enough. And then, but it's very, very rare that I cut sections of conversation out, unless it's, we've got a problem with the signal or something, and you can't quite tell what's going on.
I take the same approach, really. You've got to be true to yourself, haven't you? If that's what you've said, that's what you've said, and if that's the way you say it, that's the way you say it. If people don't like the way you say things, there's something wrong with them, not wrong with you. I mean, obviously, if people make racist remarks, you don't want it to be on there. But I mean, if you stammer, that's the way you talk. If I hiccup every 30 seconds because I've got Tourette's, that's who I am. So not being true to that seems a bit artificial to me. But yeah, so the final one, that was it. Editing, that's a lot, mate. So you do them all. You're there. In many ways, you've taken the Sydney challenge and won.
Can I now put approved by Sidney Roundwood There'll be like an ISO number that I can put on the bottom of my podcast.
Yeah, I think that's Sydney's ring of confidence.
SRC 001 approved.
Or just, that's right, a Sid ring show. Right.
Oh dear, excellent. Well, thank you very much for leading me through those. That was a little bit of fun. And we always talk.
I've never hosted a podcast before, so it's great fun to do, mate. I felt like Malcolm Parkinson.
I like to bring people into the fold. So we always talk about big games in this particular section, whether you bloody like it or not. And Nick gave his definition of a big game when he was on in episode 7. So what when I say big game, Rich, what comes to mind for you? What's your big game definition?
I've probably got a couple, and they're slightly conflicting. The big game is a game representing a big battle. Now, for me, that could be the classic type of game that I played at Peter Gilder's Wargames Holiday Centre up in Yorkshire back in the 1980s. I went up there in, I think it was 84. And we did a mixed week of Napoleonics, World War II, ACW, and I was really looking forward to his Sudan game, which was brilliant. And he'd flogged it, and he just started doing General Custer, 7th Cavalry, and he only had about 10 figures. So that was a bit of a letdown after really looking forward to the Sudan. But yeah, so you've got the great big games like that. But also, I mean, we've refought the Battle of Amiens in 1918 on maps, on World War One historic maps that we've got in the Lard Library here, quite a large map selection. And I've taken them to the printer and got them reprinted. And we've fought huge Kriegspiels involving millions of men. So for me, that's every bit a big game as the classic loads of figures on the table. And that's only happening on a map the size of, well, Nick's dinner plate.
Yeah.
So there's kind of different versions depending on how you look at it. And that game that we did with Amiens, we had about 25, 26 players. Some of them playing corps commanders, some of them playing the chief of staff, some of them playing Ludendorff and Hindenburg and so on and so forth. And you can have a huge number of players, but not have any figures at all. So that's a big game for me. But so is the classic huge game on a table that I know you love. And we all love those games, sometimes for different reasons.
Well, very similar answer to Nick, who kind of put the different aspects of big games together. But it's always, for me, it's always going to be that draw of the large number of figures that brings me to a definition of a big game. But everyone is different. No problems at all with that. But there is a draw to going bigger, because I don't know if you've noticed, but I have. A lot of your rule sets tend to be expanded by people, not just me. If the Lord spares us, as we had a chat, me and Nick, and I think you've seen one of my If the Lord Spares games at Sheffield.
Oh yeah.
I've taken it to
Brilliant.
If the Lord Spares us a lot. And there's the classic big cock Chain of Command for the people.
Yeah. Well, we played a game of big cock, and I know you're a man who likes big cock, Ken. But we played a game at a local. There was a local Wargames cafe that's opened up. It's an amazing blend of cafe and wargaming, hence the name. So we thought, well, let's try and support.
Disguised as a kind of old industrial unit.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, that's right. It's and we thought, well, let's support them. So we hired 3 tables for a whole day, and we did big cock. And on the British side, we had 17 platoons.
Oh, nice.
So I think probably about 12 of them were infantry. We had a couple of recce troops. We had a whole squadron of armour. with Cromwell's because it was a reconnaissance unit, and we we counterbalanced that with an appropriate number of Germans. So I mean, it's a huge game. I mean, there's no way around the fact that how long was the table? It was about 24 foot long by 6 foot wide. So a big game of the type that you would know and love. And all of those units weren't on the table at all times because we had phase lines, and once some units had taken a certain phase line, once one company had taken a phase line, that then triggered the release of other companies coming up behind them. But we had a lot of troops on the table. So yeah, a lot of people take those games and do different things with them. And I think that depends on the rule set, how suitable they are for that. So, for example, with Sharp Practice or with Infamy, which are card-driven systems, they have their own level of limitation whereby you can't expand them too much. And that's good. They're not designed to be big battle games. But with things like Chain of Command, where you're using the command dice, and same with Dave's O group, which uses a set of command dice. Great idea. Not sure we got it, but that's the type of thing you can upscale very, very easily by just having extra players, extra commands. So
Kiss Me Hardy also, Rich, is one of those games. You know, we've refought Trafalgar with Kiss Me Hardy. It doesn't get any bigger than Trafalgar. We're not the only ones that have done that, though. I think there's 4 or 5 people, at least, that I know of, that have used it to refight huge battles. And again, you know, it's designed for squadron actions, I guess. But equally, people do one-on-one and fleet. So it's you do have to make changes when you're playing a game at one level, taking it to a bigger level. Sometimes that's around playability. Sometimes it's around just smoothing out mechanisms that make the game move along more rapidly. But you know, it's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's get what you want from it. Once you've you know, in some ways, as a rules writer, I guess once you purchase the rules, you can do what you want with them. You can stick them in a cupboard and never use them, or you can play them as they are straight written, or you can say, you know what, I like that bit, but I don't like that bit. That's all right. That's fine. Do what you want.
Burn them and dance around them. I think if you hate Toofatlardies rules, the best way to express that is to buy them in large numbers from me, then set a light to them, dance around them naked. Nothing upsets me more. So, Toofatlardies haters out there, get buying, get burning.
and upload it to YouTube. I think is a necessary. Mind you, a lot of naked middle-aged men dancing around fire. It's a bit ripping, really.
It's fairly normal in Yorkshire, isn't it?
We call it Thursday night.
Thursday night now, working men's club, that is. Game of snooker and a naked dance around a fire.
Wow, what a way to go.
Yeah, oh dear. Right, changing tack rapidly. You've got Dave Brown on board with the Ricewitz Press. So a couple of questions, Dave, that I didn't cover in my podcast with him. And the first one has got to be, where has the Housewives' favourite moniker come from?
The Housewives, mate. The Housewives themselves gave it to him, and we simply picked up on that and took it from there.
So in the kind of the Lardies post bag, when you get all your stuff through in the morning, it's like
Knickers.
It's like
Knickers.
Underwear for Dave, underwear for Dave,
that's
underwear. Hang on, order for Chain of Command, underwear for Dave.
Yeah.
Is that how it goes?
That's exactly it. You can tell. I've got to the point where I can tell by squeezing the packet just what type of lingerie it is. Is it frilly? Is it fluffy and spongy? You know, is it those sort of Inconti pants that some of the elder women send in? It's certainly opened my eyes. It has certainly opened my eyes, Ken, to the world of lingerie. He's a very popular man with the Housewives, and it's a little trophy. A group of women's institutes got together and paid for and sent it in for him. And we've got it on a shelf just up there.
Oh, that's lovely.
Housewives' favourite, Dave Brown. Yeah.
Lovely. Scratch and sniff at its favourite, at its best.
Oh, God, no.
Ooh. So Was Dave
I'm saying nothing.
Dave kind of wandering around aimlessly, homeless, looking for work when you found him, and you brought him up like
He was.
like an orphan?
He was on a park bench, and he had a brown paper bag in his hand. And I thought, I recognise that man. And at one time, he was a very smart, dapper inspector, no less, in the Metropolitan Police. And I thought, my God, times must have become hard for him. So I went over and spoke to him, and he was crying and very emotional, clearly upset. And I said, what's wrong, Dave? And he said, I've got a great idea for a game called Pickett's Charge. He said, it's American Civil War. He said, but nobody wants to publish it. I'm not loved anymore. I said, Dave, you are. I know you are. There are millions of housewives out there who are backing you all the way. And I think just talking to me gave him the fillip that he needed. It cheered him up. And we had a look at the document, and we got him to do it again in pen this time, not crayon. Crayon's fine, but it's not perfect for editorial purposes. And in a way, I like to think we've taken Dave under our collective arms, under our little wings, and helped him grow from the gnarled up, wizened acorn that he was into a fine, tall, sturdy oak tree that he has become. An oak tree in the world of game design.
It is a fine thing that you have done for that man. He was lost. He was lost, and now he has been found.
Yeah.
He's wonderful for his age as well, considering.
Yeah.
He does. We had a fabulous time at his 70th birthday down in London. We went to the Bow Street Tavern, which we thought was appropriate for an old Metropolitan Police officer like Dave. And he loved it. He loved it, mate. He loved every minute of it.
Him. Care for the elderly as well. I think you're doing a wonderful job.
In the community, mate. In the community.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. He didn't look 70 when I spoke to him. He's doing very well. Is that Southern Water? Is that?
He has a filter on his webcam.
Does he?
He does.
Yeah.
And as well as lingerie, I think a large amount of makeup comes through for him as well. And I think he moisturises regularly.
Excellent. But
who doesn't?
And that's clearly Dave Brown not talking to any of us ever again after that little bit of the section. But Rich, you have spoken about in the past your dream to write Franco-Prussian War set of rules.
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, occasionally Dave and I speak together about us actually getting together and creating a love child of wargaming, which would be a Franco-Prussian War set based on something like General Darmay 2, hopefully. But whether that ever happens, I don't know. It's like I remember seeing Melinda Messenger on Fort Boyard and thinking, do you know what? I could get together and work with Melinda, but it never happened, mate. It never happened, and probably for the best.
There's a couple of memories there that have just come back to me. Anyway, moving on rapidly. So we're going to take another break for the audience now, and we're going to be back very, very shortly when we are going to put Richard through the Yorkshire Gamer Quiz. Well, welcome back to section 3, which is the features section. We've moved things around a little bit for this episode, but we had to have the quiz. And back in episode 7, Nick scored 60%, and that's 60% Yorkshire Gamer. So that could be a winning score or a losing score, depending on which way round you want to look at things. And I really don't mind. So, Rich, you are ready to go with the quiz?
Yeah.
Most answers are yes or no, or one or the other. There's a massive regional bias, and just to be aware of. But other than that, if we want to have a chat about any of the questions at any of the times, we certainly can do. And by all means, Nick, pitch in if you wish to take the mick out of one of Rich's answers.
Yeah, do I have to act as his brief and advise no comment from time to time?
Yeah. Just randomly, no comment.
Just say no comment, Rich, to everything.
For the benefit of the tape.
For the benefit of the tape, The Yorkshire gamer is smacking Rich's head on the table.
Yeah. That noise in the background is not Constable Jones helping me with the interrogation. Right. So, I just for regular listeners, one of the questions has changed since Nick did it. So, I've put that question back in so that the final score will reflect how Yorkshire Gamer Rich is compared to Nick. So, if you suddenly go, oh, where's that come from? Then you'll know why. Right. So, question 1, Rich, go big or go home.
Go big.
Big. Excellent. Question 2. Contrast paints, are they great or are they a gimmick?
They're communism. They're evil. Yeah. No, they're a gimmick. They're awful.
Excellent. Good
I've
one.
never used them, but on the basis I have to make a binary choice between the two, they are the spawn of Satan.
Brilliant. That's what I like. Decisive. I think, Nick, you said they are great and they're a gimmick.
Yeah, that's still true, I think.
Yeah. And I gave you half a point for being a smart twat.
Exactly. See the two-faced political lizards that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. You get none of that with me. I'm straight down the line, mate.
Excellent. So, paintbrushes, are you going super expensive down south, Windsor and Newton, or Yorkshire made value pro art?
Well, I hate to admit this, I use both. The most recent ones I bought were really, really cheap and nasty. So if I want a brush for dry brushing, if I want a brush for base coating, I will use cheap and nasty. If I want a brush for detailed, I will use Windsor & Newton Series 7. In the ratio, I probably buy 20 cheap brushes to every good one. So you're probably going to have to give me half because I probably use the one brush 20 times as much as the cheap ones. So half, mate. I'm halfway between the two.
Have you got a DRS, Ken, or a kind of VAR to help with some of these decisions?
Well, not really. I'm going to say that Pro Art are superior to Windsor and Newton. So I'm going to say I treated myself to a Pro Art Renaissance Sable brush yesterday.
Right.
Well, I've just discovered a company called Rosemary's Brushes, and I've got one on my desk. I have in my hand a Rosemary's brush, and they're cheaper than Windsor & Newton Series 7, but they're Kolinsky Sable, and they're really nice, and they're about half to 2/3 of the price.
Yeah.
So I have made a change to these recently, and they keep the point really well. I've had that. That's been my primary brush for months now. It's really good.
Yeah. So the question is, does he get a point or not for that?
No, I only get half. I really
I got
you to decide how many points. It's for Ken to decide how many points you get.
Yeah, but I can read Ken's mind.
I gave him half just to keep things going because we've been going for 4 minutes and we're only on question 4. We're normally finished by now.
Hurry up, Ken.
It's your fault. You're the host.
Yeah, true. I've got no control. I never have had any control over it. So. Question 4, 96 figures. Is that an army or a pike block?
Well, it's a force. It's another skanky army. Yeah, it's an army.
6x4. Is that a big game or a small game? Table 6x4.
You broke up, mate. Sorry.
A 6x4 table. Is that a big game or a small game?
Small game.
Controversial. Would you choose?
Game.
Yeah, normal game. That's why I said it was.
No games are smaller. Yeah,
it was an average game, and somebody got very upset about the fact that I said that. Right, question 6: point-based army or historical order of battle?
Historical.
Good lad. Right, we're going to come back to Nick on this question because of the way he answered it first time round. But we'll start with Rich. You're mixing your paints. Do you want a wet palette or an old bit of MDF?
I've got my nan's old saucer here. Does that count?
That is how you do your paints. Nick.
Yes. What did I say last time round then?
You just got a wet palette like the week before, and you I think you put it forward for best bit on the bench, and everyone said that's a load of bollocks. So they got rid of it. But are you still wet palleting?
I'm gonna ask my lawyer for advice. The truth is, no, I'm not wet palleting. I've got a wet palette, and every now and then I think, ooh, my sponge must need moistening. But the truth is, I just tend to put a bit of paint on a blodge of whatever I'm using as a kind of mat and paint up from that. But I think the reason for that, and what I'm going to put forward as my defence, if I feel that needs defending, is that I don't paint often enough, and my wet palette does dry out in between it. So it's I've kind of started on it but given up on it mostly. But I still think if I did a big run of painting, I might use a wet palette.
I'm exactly the same. I'm actually exactly the same. I was going to say I've got my wet palette here, but it's only the top bits. I don't know where the bottom bits are. So when I'm just doing a quick bit of painting today, and I'm not going to do it tomorrow, I'll use my nan's old saucer. The sad thing is, my nan, we threw my nan away because she was burnt at the stake, actually. But I kept her saucer. I didn't keep her. I don't know what that says about me as a bad person. Her ashes went, but we kept her saucer.
Was it a cat saucer?
No, it's just a saucer. I think she had sandwiches on it or whatever you do, really.
Well, I hate to tell you, Rich, but your wet palette is just actually a box.
Yeah, it is, actually. No, it's not even a box. It's just 2 bits of plastic. I don't know where the rest of it is.
I'm a little bit repulsed and worried, Rich, that some of that scatter we use on the table might be your nan.
Might be my nan. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's nice to remember people in ways that you feel are appropriate.
Gets a trip to Holland every now and again.
Yeah. Check out for gold teeth when you're putting that scatter on.
Oh, dear me. We've just been
banned. The pacemaker.
We've just been... Oh, dear. Yeah, that monetisation thing that we didn't talk about in the last part, that's gone. I feel quite proud, actually, when it's usually the Brews and the Binyard episodes, but I feel quite proud when YouTube refused to monetize my stuff. It's like, yeah.
Who are they to be the moral upholders of society these days? Anyway.
Exactly. Some of the stuff that I see on YouTube, and I think, that's monetized, but me swearing a little bit every now and again isn't. Yeah, anyway, never mind. So we are on question 8. Undercoating figures, Rich, black or white?
Never white. However, sometimes I use grey. Yeah. And sometimes I even use brown. If I'm doing a unit of British World War II, I'll just spray them Humbrol shitty earth brown.
Yeah, I'll use brown.
And take it from there. But default black. Never white.
Excellent. Nice to see. You're offered a hot drink. Would you go for Yorkshire tea or dirty, mucky coffee?
I wouldn't actually go for any tea because I hate tea. I would always go for coffee. But largely I try and avoid hot drinks and go for something with a little bit of added benefit.
Oh, a bit of fizz. Awful. Lovely. Bit of cooking lager. Nice to see.
Absolutely.
Question 10, halfway through. Wargame units, if it's historically accurate, do you prefer them tightly packed or socially distanced?
It's really interesting, actually. I hate painting, as I've already mentioned. So when I look at your pike blocks that you've done for the Italian Wars, mine are much more socially distanced, only because I hate painting bloody figures. So I've got 3 to a base, 2 to a base, rather than your 3 to a base. But tightly packed, yours look so much better. And every time I get my pike blocks out, I think of you, Ken, and aspire to be like you, mate.
Oh, that's very kind of you, thank you. I don't know whether to be happy or sad. Right, moving on. Would you like a 2-hour club game or a weekend monster game?
I prefer a 2-hour club game because I get extraordinarily bored over 2 days.
Is that down?
I can confirm that.
Is that down to the volume of drink on the Saturday night?
Probably, yeah. It doesn't help, does it?
No.
2-day events leave me cold. It's like the old thing, you have a bottle of wine and you think, hey, that was really good. I really enjoyed that bottle of wine. And you have a second one and you think, that I enjoyed that even better. But having a third one is not a good idea. Having the third one will not make it even better than the second one. And having a fourth one definitely won't. And the second day of any Wargames event for me is the third and fourth bottle of wine that I really do not want.
Thank you for that exploration of the law of diminishing marginal returns. You can now flag this as an economics podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect description. Mate.
Yeah, we'll be competing with Richard Marr at the top of the economics podcast. So number 12 is the Nick Skinner question, the question that was introduced specifically for Nick and has stayed in the podcast ever since. And that is, avocado, are they just posh, mushy peas?
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
they
brilliant.
are.
Brilliant. Are you still eating avocados, Nick, or have you seen the light?
Yeah. Amongst many thousands of other things. Yep. I still like avocado. Scrambled egg on toast with bacon and avocado and some fresh chilies. That is my go-to breakfast, mate.
That is sick.
It's lovely, really, really nice. The trouble is, and you have to be really careful when you have avocado out in public, not only because you might be seen eating it, but also because what happens is when you go to a restaurant and they serve you the breakfast, or you go to, I don't know, somewhere and they've got a posh breakfast, they serve you scrambled egg and avocado. The issue is the avocado is cold, and scrambled egg can easily be made cold by the avocado.
Ooh.
And nothing I hate more than cold scrambled egg. So it's a great breakfast, but it's got to be enjoyed at that moment where the egg is still hot and the avocado hasn't yet made it cold. There you go.
I'm not even involved in this conversation. It's insanity.
It's
You can tell that he is from the South, whereas I only live in the South. That's the difference.
It's like Saturday morning kitchen for Wargamers. There we go.
Yeah.
Well, I
just tell you, sour bread toast. Sour bread toast is a southern thing, Ken. I bet you don't have that up there. Sour bread toast, scrambled egg, avocado, fresh chili, cup of Yorkshire tea to placate the locals.
Is that like 4-day-old bread? Is that what sourdough bread is?
Just like that. Yeah. It's like slicing a piece of car in a tube and then putting your breakfast on top of that. No, sourdough's lovely, really nice.
Yeah. It doesn't sound very nice, I have to say. It's not something I've ever come across. But there we go. Right, because I thought I had an avocado line that I could draw on the map, whereas north of that line, no avocado. South of that line, avocado fest. And then Henry Hyde come on the show and said he didn't like avocados, and he's as far south as you can get.
Christ. I can't believe that. Actually, I would have put Henry up there as king of the avocados. Almost.
Yeah, I'll have a word with Henry. He's obviously off his mind.
No, I would have thought he would have been like president of the Brighton District Avocado Appreciation Society or something similar, but clearly not.
No.
I'm disappointed, Henry. If you're listening, I'm disappointed in you.
But there we go. Anyway, question 13.
What you find out about people, it's remarkable, isn't it? Right, there we are. 13. Unlucky
for some. Everyone in all the episodes has answered this question the same way, Rich. So there's no pressure on you here whatsoever. And that is round dice, spherical dice. Are they allowed or banned on your table?
I love them. I really, really love round dice.
Do you?
No. I can't think of anything more bloody stupid. If round dice were put on my table, I'd go down the workshop and get a club hammer out and smash them.
Excellent. The 100% record is kept. I do have one somewhere under here because somebody. Oh, it's here. Somebody approached me at a show.
You sure that's a round dice?
Somebody approached me at a show and said, "There you go, Ken. There's a round dice." And as a purely scientific experiment, I've tried to roll this about 50, 60 times, and it has never come up on a number. It always comes up. It always comes up somewhere between two numbers. So
Well, that isn't the dice then. That is a Subbuteo
it
ball.
is, with a weight in it and some numbers on. So thank you, Ian Fraser out there. That has become a major talking point at the Yorkshire Gamer Wargaming Rule, and it rattles. I don't know if you can hear that. It's shit.
If it rattles, it must be weighted.
It is, but because it's not fixed weighted, it rolls around randomly inside, and you have to hope
Right.
that it stops somewhere where there's a number above it.
Right.
It probably rattles so that you can use it if you are blind or partially sighted. Does it?
Oh yeah, you could play that special football and stuff with it, couldn't you?
You could, where it have a bell in it.
Your cricket, blind cricket, the ball has a bell in it.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Right, I'll post it off tomorrow. Right, so this is the changed question, everyone. This is the changed question. Don't have a heart attack. This is the changed question. Question 14. This might need some explaining, but would you pay 33 pence for a communist?
What? Would I pay
33 pence for a communist?
For a communist?
And this is why it came out of the quiz, because people didn't understand it.
No, I wouldn't
man.
pay anything for a communist.
What was it? What was it, Kay? It was a reference to
Yeah,
what?
so I'd put a massive game on at Triples, and we did the Sonte prison raid from Vietnam, where they successfully rescued quite a number of American airmen. And at the time, SHQ Miniatures, if you remember them, 20mm manufacturers, had just brought their Vietnam range out. So the guy, they had massive number of sales because we were like right in front of them. So at the end of the day, the guy said, "Oh well, we'll give you all these at a discount." And I can't £1 a pack or whatever it was, and I said, £1 a pack? I'm not paying bloody 33p for a communist, because we'd used plastic Eschi figures for the VC and the MVA on the day. So that's where that comes from. So rightly, I wouldn't.
How many communists do you get to a pound?
3 apparently.
Right. 3. Right. Well, I've learned many things today, and that's certainly the most unusual of them.
Exactly. Well, sometimes you say things that you're not quite thinking about, and then they stick with you for the rest of your life, and that's one of the things that stuck with me. So
it's scarred you, mate. It's scarred
exactly.
you.
So 15. Yeah. Do you like? This is a good one for you. Do you like a good table and a set of rules, a casualty table or an armor penetration table?
Oh yeah, of course. I'll tell you why. Because I heard a few years ago people saying, "Oh gosh, that set of rules have got a lot of tables in it," as though it was a negative thing. And you think, actually, if you want a concise way to present information, tables are a lot more accessible in the heat of a game than a huge page of text. So yeah, tables are a necessary part of any Wargames rules that is attempting to present very important information in a concise and clear manner. And that's why when I edit a set of rules or write a set of rules, the stuff that is really, really important during a game, I tend to put in a table format, because as you flip through, you will look at the tables, and the tables are the natural punctuation points in the flow of the game. So yeah, sure.
Oh, excellent. Now, I know you are a fan of the egg chasing, Rich, but this is a football question, and the question is Bradford City or dirty Leeds United?
Well, I have to say that one of the earliest memories of my life in terms of football is Norman Hunter breaking his arm at a FA Cup final and playing on, and in in a world where I don't really like the game, and I see footballers diving around and reaching for the hairspray, I would go back and say if any footballer should have been a rugby union player, it was Norman Hunter. So I'm going to go with Leeds, and I know that's the wrong answer, but I don't care.
Leeds. Question 19. Yorkshire or the other place over the hill?
Neither of them are Cheshire, so I couldn't give a monkeys.
Good answer. And question 20. Games Workshop, are they the work of the devil? Yes or no?
No, I think they're a very impressive company, and I'm very impressed with the way they've turned themselves around in the last 10 years to become a huge player and bigger than Marks and Spencer's. I mean, who the hell ever thought they could say that about a company in wargaming? I had a copy of Battle magazine which had a piece in it about the opening of the very first Games Workshop shop somewhere in London. I don't know where it was. And I chucked them all away in lockdown, actually, because they were taking up too much space, but I felt bad about it. But you think a company that's gone from one little shop selling funny little toys to being as big as that and influencing and changing the lives of so many people by introducing them to the idea of wargaming or games with a conflict content, and that then provides a bridge to what we do. I love them to bits. I've never ever played any of their games, ever, which I suppose for a game designer is something embarrassing. I shouldn't really say that. I've never played any of their games. I like going in their shops and buying paint, and the bloke behind the counter will say, "What are you painting?" And I'll say, "The hall." And he doesn't know what to say. But so it's a constant source of entertainment when I occasionally go in there. But no, love
I think there is an immense sense of as you say, entertainment in going into a Games Workshop or Games Workshop store and answering with, "Oh, I'm currently doing some 1940s Dutch East India figures." Oh, are they a new faction for?
Yeah,
definitely not.
I was in a Games Workshop store once, and the guy said to me, "I know you. You're Nick from Toofatlardies, aren't you?"
What?
So they're closer to us than you might think.
Yeah. Closer to you, obviously.
Obviously, yeah. I've got a fan base.
Wow. Did you get a free figure or anything? Did he?
No,
I'm through his underpants.
I bought what I went in there for, and I made a hasty exit and made sure I followed.
I'm surprised you didn't. I'm surprised you didn't go, "Here's my wife's underwear. Can you give them to Dave Brown?"
You may say that.
Well, thank you very much for that, Rich. You scored 67.5%, which is 7.5% more Yorkshire gamer than Nick.
Good. Well, I'm happy with that, to be honest with you. I'm happy with that because there are some glaring ones in there where I wasn't conforming, and I know what I should have said to get a higher score, but I couldn't give a monkeys.
That's fine. It's not about winning, Rich. It's about taking part. And at the end of the day, the winner is wargaming.
Considering it was,
the winner was me. I won. Skinner lost. That's the important thing.
Yeah. But if it was, it depends how you look at it, really. But if it was 33 episodes ago that I did my one, then inflation must have some part to play in the difference.
Well, you've certainly inflated.
There's a bit of a fight going on. A step back. Then a step back.
I called it abuse, actually, less of a fight.
But there we go. So we're going to finish off this section with a little bit of a chat about the World Cup of historical war games rules and the absolute madness that it became. So how did you guys kind of become aware of what was going on?
I can't remember, actually. I think I must have heard it on your podcast, to be honest with you. But by the time it kicked off, because I think I was lagging a bit in terms of you'd already made the selections and you'd already gone through into the first rounds. So I think I heard about it when it was in the first round, and I just thought, this is utterly bonkers. but B, this is hilariously funny. And I thought it was great. It was like, what's best, a helicopter or a microwave? Some really interesting matchup. So it wasn't like, what do you prefer, bolt action or chain of command, which people would, is kind of normal. It's what's best, a little old lady or a giant dragon? It depends what you want done, doesn't it? Really, So I love the anarchic.
It was a bit like that thing when you're a kid, isn't it? And right, who'd win in a fight between a hippopotamus and a weasel?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. That's why I loved it. It's great. I reckon the weasel.
Does that mean that Chain of Command is more weasel-like, or is it more hippopotamus-like? I don't know, really.
So, Nick, when did you pick it up?
I've no idea. The final, probably. It kind of flitted across my screens a few times. It was curious to look at. I think Rich said a bit bemused really about it all. I couldn't have an opinion on a lot of it because play a lot of our own rules, but don't really play many others. So it's just interesting to watch. And when it got down to the final few, as I say, it was just kind of it was a win-win, really, wasn't it? It was strike out the champagne and then. And enjoy it, whatever happened. It was good fun to watch. Well done to you for running it, Ken. I think loads of people took part in it and enjoyed it, and it provoked lots of discussion. So well done to you for that.
Did. There were some really challenging ones in there. I mean, I as soon as I heard about it, I tried to vote, and I tried not to vote for our rules. Although I there was sometimes when I had to do it, obviously, like we were losing.
Yeah.
And in which case, I created 72 different Facebook personas. But no, that's not true. But there was some. I mean, I voted against one of our rule sets, and I can't remember which one it was. And I voted for Charles Grant's.
Yeah.
Classic, just because I thought it was. I just don't feel that we can be compared with some rule sets which are so important in terms of just important bits of wargaming history that I thought, no, I've got to vote for that. I've got to vote against me here. But secretly, I was glad we won it. But from my own, could I look myself in the face having voted against Charles Grant? I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I have to say that was very honest of you. And when I put the seeds together, I was trying to put together not my 8 favourite rule sets, but the 8 rule sets that I thought had been most influential over my period of time in the hobby. So I chose Grand Manor, WRG Ancients, Fire and Fury, Chain of Command, Quarry Napoleonics, Black Powder, Charles Grant's The War Game, and Rapid Fire as my 8 seeds. Is there anything that you would have kind of omitted from that or preferred to have seen? Anything that was a big influence on you?
I thought the ones that you chose were kind of, well, apart from Chain of Command, let's leave anything we produced out of it. But things like Rapid Fire, I mean, that's a huge milestone on the wargaming journey. The Charles Grant's rules, again, a huge milestone as you go through your wargaming life. These are all rule sets that you come across. I mean, there were some on there that hadn't played, a lot of them that I hadn't played. But yeah, I mean, I thought you chose it. I thought you chose the headline acts. They were, if you like, at the Queen's birthday festival. They were the bands that you would expect to turn up. It's Diana Ross. They might not be contemporary hit artists, but they're the ones that represent the last 40 years of her reign. So you've got rules from every age of man, if you like, in there over the last 40 years. So I thought they were a good selection. I was very flattered that Chain of Command was in there. I was amazed actually that Chain of Command was in there, but because it's quite a newer set compared to some of those. But,
so Ken, was Sharp Practice in that list?
No, mate.
No, Sharp.
Nobody plays that crap.
Sharp Practice was the highest.
Emerged.
Yeah, it was from the public vote to get the 16 first round rules in. Sharp Practice, I think, finished top or second. It was very high up.
Okay.
Very, very high
absolutely.
up.
Well,
So and when it came to the voting, all but Chain of Command of the Seeds got knocked out.
Oh, really? I hadn't realised that.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
And knocked out early, were
They
as
were
well?
all-
So it's interesting.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
that second round, when the 8 winners of the first round played the 8 seeds, only 1 seed went through, and that was Chain of Command.
It's a bit like pop music, isn't it? If you'd done a survey 10 years ago, what are the greatest pop bands of all time? 10 years ago, you'd have had the Beatles in there, you'd have had the Rolling Stones in there, you'd have had here, there, and everywhere, but you'd also have had the Spice Girls in there 10 years ago. Now, if you ask the same question, you'd have the Beatles in there, you'd have the Rolling Stones in there, and I doubt very much if the Spice Girls would get a mention at all. Although I particularly like the Spice Girls, but that's
another one to talk about.
What's the has there been any silverware given out for this? Is there any kind of hefty items of high mineral content material knocking about that we can melt down as a consequence of this, or do we get nothing? What's the prize for winning?
I'm looking into getting a trophy.
We're here. They're here. Just spending time with Ken is the biggest prize.
Is that it? That's the trophy. Avocado. It's got to be an avocado-shaped trophy.
I'm looking at sourcing a trophy that will obviously.
I don't want
one.
No, I think it would trivialise it, Ken. Yeah.
No, what a huge gold trophy, of course. Stupid fool.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the difference. That's the difference, isn't it, mate, between you and me?
Yeah.
The superficial, the trivial, the blingy, all that glitters is you.
I suppose I was born within 25 miles of Essex. It must be the period of bling. That shine in the evening sky isn't the setting sun. It's Essex.
Well, the plan is to do it
west,
again in a couple of years' time. I'm going to do a.
Brilliant. Well, we'll be like the Spice Girls. We won't be in it then, probably.
No. Well, hopefully that's true.
Well, he's back. We lost Rich for a second there.
Richard pressed the wrong button and disappeared into space.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Invoking the power of spice.
Stop pressing buttons, Richard.
Well, the 8 quarter-finalists will be the 8 seeds next time round. So, looking at this, you've got quite a few in, including Dave Brown's. You've got O Group, General Dame, Chain of Command, Sharp Practice, all straight through to round 2. So,
and what would the other ones be?
The other ones are Four Kingdom Parliament.
Yeah, good one. Excellent.
Lion Rampant. Which I should have banned because it beat Quarry Napoleonics. I was devastated by that. To the Strongest, and Battle Group. They were the good. They were the 8 seeds.
Yeah. Well, it's a strong show.
Yeah, and I kind of got caught out by it. I was expecting it to be, a little bit of a side thing, and it ended up the administration of it was taking up virtually all my time because it was 14,111 votes cast.
Right, that's remarkable, mate. And do you know what, mate? All those 14,000 people were voting for a set of rules, but they were also voting for you, Ken.
Some of them
each one
from the comments. Some of them definitely weren't. This is stupid. How can you have To the Strongest against Quarry Napoleonics? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but nor does a hippopotamus against a weasel, but that doesn't make it crazy wacko fun.
But the conversations that it got going were just, I really enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. And I'll tell you what I was pleased about. In the end, the final was pretty close running, wasn't it? I mean, it was only in the final furlong that Chain of Command really streaked away. So there were some really, really close votes. But what that tells me, mate, is we are in a hobby with some fantastic rule sets out there that people really love. We're in an age of great choice. And that's the positive thing for the hobby. Much more important than a shitty trophy that some people want.
What can I say?
Yeah. Well, I'm only in it for the silverware, mate. You know that.
Yes. Well, if I can source one,
I've got a bookshelf behind me. It's got a space
I
there
know.
waiting.
Oh no, it's bigger than that. The one it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that.
Is it Dusty
Yeah,
Bin?
oh,
The
Dusty
golden dustbin
Bin.
of lard.
Yeah.
Me too.
Dusty Bin would be a great addition to Nick's
Oh,
shelves.
it
He can
would.
keep his
No, no,
nuts
3,
in it.
2, 1, and it was 3, 2, 1. Dusty Bin. Ah,
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
3
yeah,
to
yeah,
10.
yeah.
I remember
3, 2, 1.
always
The great Ted
trying to
Rogers.
do that at school, and then getting it completely wrong
Yeah, yeah.
and doing that to the games master and getting.
Do you know what?
Absolutely.
We still call it the full TED. If anybody's playing Chain of Command with us and they roll a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1,
That's
we
the full
call it
TED.
the full TED.
Yeah, because
The
it's
full
not just the TED. If you roll 3, 2, 1, you've got the TED. You can have the extended TED, the full TED. We've got all of the TED variations based on Ted Rogers and 3, 2, 1.
I'm going to add that to the Yorkshire gamer vocabulary. Do you have a special name for a double 2?
No, mate, that would be stupid.
We call it a Desmond.
A Desmond.
Desmond.
Oh, 2-2. Yeah, very
Desmond
good.
2-2.
Yeah.
So there you go. Traded your fair trade.
That was fair trade, mate. Yeah.
During the course of the thing, did you ever look at some of the comments, because it was getting extremely funny, and it was kind of, why isn't this in?
Oh, they were great. It's already been in. I love the comments on an American website that will not be named because it's full of crazy people with guns, and they might shoot me when I go to Historicon next year.
God, yeah.
There was some great. That's ridiculous that this set of rules isn't on there. It's already been knocked out, mate. And yeah, only 2 people voted for it, and it was like, I just love the way that the hobby is so fractured that some people playing in a club up in the Appalachian Mountains, wherever that is, believe that the most popular rule set in the world is one written by a bloke called Bert, who used to game there 30 years ago and died and left the rules to the club. But because they never make contact with any other club, they believe that is the most popular set of rules in the world. And that clubhouse is replicated across the globe. People in the Cotswolds who've got 6 fingers and things like that and never game with any other club believe that another set of rules is really popular. And but that's quite a nice thing about the hobby, is we can all enjoy the rules that we enjoy. Yeah. That's really positive. Unlike tennis. If I went to have a game of tennis at a local tennis club and say, I really don't like the way these rules work, let's ignore these lines here and play it our own way, they'd go, get out, you're a bloody lunatic. In wargaming, that's encouraged. That's so healthy. It's like anarchy.
But we have they have the Lawn Tennis Association, mate, that sets the rules. Luckily, we don't have any of that old rubbish.
No, you could be the heavy roller.
I could be.
Exactly. So once again, I'll apologise to the person from Alabama who wanted to put their own homebrew rules in that nobody else had seen. I just wanted to save you the embarrassment of not getting any votes.
Put him in next time. I'll give him a vote.
But that's lovely, isn't it? Isn't that symbolic of how fabulously diverse the hobby is in terms of bonkers rule sets? I love it. I love the fact we all do what we want. It's fabulous.
And they might be the best set of rules, we just don't know it yet. We never played them.
No, exactly.
There was I think there was 108 set rules nominated overall, including the 18s. Right. And there's a few that I had to look up. Never ever heard of it. Never ever heard of it. So the quarterfinals came through to the semi-finals, and it was O Group versus Chain of Command.
What a fight that was! What a fight that was!
What? The
knickers stopped coming then, mate. I can tell you.
That one was really close, actually. Loads. And I think I spoke with Dave about, and kind of you would have a kind of slightly less biased opinion. But O Group has become extremely popular in terms of World War II rules very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's obviously that's praise for the rules themselves.
Yeah, totally. They're a really good set of rules, and they scale up fabulously. You know, you can do much bigger actions. You can do brigade level actions on big tables. So they're a great set of rules, and I'm proud to publish them.
And then the other side semi-final was To the Strongest and Sharp Practice, which is another fairly close battle. And I think what I enjoyed about the semi-finals was the fact that there was different historical periods in there, and not just all World War II, or not just Napoleonics. And it was good that there was an ancient set in there as well.
I totally agree. I thought as we came to the final, it was good to see a real spread, and really, again, there was nobody running away with it. These were closely fought battles.
Yeah, excellent. And then finally, Chain of Command versus Sharp Practice in the final. Did you kind of back off and relax at that point?
No, it's a grudge match, mate. It's a grudge match. You know, Ken, I've got 2 daughters, and I love them both to bits. And the dog, Fred's a bit upset. He's just turned up to say, "What about me?" But I've got 2 daughters. Which one do you vote for? Which one of your kids do you vote for? You can't do it. So it was nice to know they were there, but I was split, mate. I was split. I didn't know which way to turn. In the end, I didn't vote. I didn't vote for either. Did
you have a vote, Nick?
No, I didn't vote. No, I didn't think I voted in any of them, Ken. So it mainly on Facebook, wasn't it, the voting?
It was, yeah. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try something different next year, because I know some people aren't use Facebook a lot, but I chose it because it was the highest number of people that followed.
That's a perfectly reasonable platform to use, but I don't think I did vote. Actually, and if it come to the final, I don't know which one I voted for either. Actually,
no,
I play more Chain of Command, but I love Sharp Practice. I love the narrative. There we go. There's the bingo word, chaps. I love the narrative, the storyline it presents. I noticed actually that overnight that Jay Arnold, Rich, the veteran wargamer, he's got hold of a copy of Sharp Practice and he's starting to play it. And people are saying to him, you'll love the narrative content of it. So I really enjoy. We've had some really, really fun games of Sharp Practice, and I always think of Sharp Practice as a bit more fun, whereas I think of Chain of Command as a bit more. I try to use it a bit more to understand stuff. So,
I agree.
Yeah, but you can obviously have fun as well. But Sharp Practice, some of the games we've had with various characters from all over the world of horse and musket period has been good fun.
I've got to feed the dog because he's crying. You know him crying in the rest of the bloody podcast. Hold
on. Breakfast time.
It's the first time I've ever had a dog fed halfway through a podcast, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, what happens, the way that the dog feeds, of course, is Richard has to go and regurgitate his own breakfast.
Yes.
And the dog then eats that.
It's the. I hope it doesn't happen for a third time.
Sorry about that.
That was a quick feeding.
Yeah, well, the wife had it out. I just had to put it down for her.
I was saying, Rich, that what you have to do is you have to regurgitate your own breakfast, and then Freddie eats that. Isn't that the way?
Right, feeding birds. I go out in the garden, eat worms, and then when he wants feeding, I vomit out.
I've had a bit of a result. My daughter now works in a custard factory.
Awesome.
I have arrived. So when that trophy, Ken, make sure you can put custard in it.
Do you ever have too much custard?
No, never. You can never have too much custard, but not on avocado. Don't put your custard on avocado. That would be too much for most people.
Oh, I might try it on mushy peas. See how it goes. A little half spoon of sugar and a tiny bit of mint sauce in mushy peas. Oh,
right. I thought you were going to say in custard. Jesus Christ.
Dear me.
There is a culinary podcast in the making.
There really is.
There certainly is. Avocado and peas.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me. What can I say? So it just leaves me to...
Gastroenteritis podcast.
Yeah, I'm just going to trap 2. I'll be back in a minute.
Who's in trap number 6?
Oh dear. So I just leaves me to congratulate you, gentlemen, on getting 2 sets of rules through to the final. I think it's with the level of votes. I think that is a remarkable achievement. So congratulations to you both. And I just want to say thanks for hijacking my big game World Cup and putting your sneaky skirmish rules in the final. What can I say?
Well, Ken, it's a funny old game, mate. I mean, we were taking it one game at a time.
Yep.
There are no easy games at this level, but we came with a game plan and we were sticking to it, mate. I think that was it.
You did a brilliant job. You did a
Well, it was going to be 2 halves in the end, Ken. 2 halves. One of them sharp practice, the other chain of command. At one point, I was worried we'd lost the dressing room. Maybe we scored too early, but it was all to play for. And we gave 110%, Ken. I think that's it. We gave 100%. And ultimately, we got the ball in the back of the net. And as for chain of command, well, goals win games and the boy done good.
Yeah. And Sidney got his hairdryer out at half time.
Yeah, that's right.
That was all fun. And I don't believe what they said about the referee was true.
No. I had my sponge ready and my bucket of icy water, and that kept the boys going through to the end. But in the end, it was chain of command what come up with the goods.
It did the bit, and I have to say that to prove how unbiased I was, the 3 sets of rules that I voted for in the preliminary round all got knocked out and didn't make the first round. And then my one banker from the seeds of Quarry Napoleon Mix got knocked out straight away by Lion Rampant of all things.
Well, can I suggest maybe you buy a copy of Sharp Practice and Chain of Command, set a light to them and dance naked round them?
Yes.
But buy a dozen copies to make them.
Yeah. The bigger fire, bigger the dance.
Unfortunately, I've got a PDF copy of Chain of Command, so
you can't set a light to that, mate. You need
that's
the
going to be
real
expensive. That is. My wife's work iPad going up in flames, and what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm just dancing around, but no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Well, thank you very much for that, chaps. It was lovely to speak with both the winning and losing managers. And we'll take a quick break for the audience. We'll be back very shortly with Wargames Room 101. Oh dear. Well,
you have to make the door wider.
Yeah, whether or not that comment from Rich recorded could be the end of the Toofatlardies. I hope for them it didn't, but there we go. So the start of the final section, we're going to talk Wargames Room 101, and this is a feature I thought would run out of steam very quickly, but unfortunately, so many people have got so many things that are their pet hates within wargaming that we've managed to get a different one every time for quite some time. And Nick put one in the Wargames Room 101 when he came on as a guest on one of the catch-up episodes. So, Rich, is there anything that you particularly would like to banish into Wargames Room 101? What's your pet hate from wargaming?
Well, do you know what, Ken? I gave a lot of thought to this matter, mate, and I thought at this very moment in time, with 3 books approaching being finalised, I thought the thing I'd really like to put into Room 101 are people who say to me, "When's it ready? When's it going to be published?" Because I don't bloody know. But I'm not going to say that.
You're not going to say that. Oh.
I love those people to bits, and it's lovely to get that degree of interest. It's just if when it's ready, I'll let you know. But the thing I really, really would like to put, what I really want to put into Room 101 of Wargaming is freeloading parasites. And by that, I mean.
I'm sorry, Rich. That just broke up. Then, can you just do that again? I do apologise.
It must have been the venom.
Yes.
Freeloading parasites, Ken.
Freeloading
parasites. Right. Okay. Now, I feel very, very strongly that if you're going to go along to a war game show and put on a war game, or if you're going to go to an event to present a war game, you need to be going there because you want to show your game to the general public. If you get an invite to Salute to put on a game, if you get an invite to Partisan to put on a game, if you get an invite to the local scout hut to put on a game, you are in the shop window of wargaming. You should be doing everything you can to make sure that the people enjoying that game are the people attending that event. You should, to use a modern trendy term, be outward facing. What you should not be doing is saying to your mates, if we put on a game at that show, 11 of us can get in for free, and then they will sit there all day doing nothing to interface with the people who are attending the event. If they ask us any questions, we'll tell them that we're busy and playing a game and please bugger off. And then we'll be able to get all our shopping and we'll all save 10 quid on the entrance fee. And I hate to say it, but there are people out there who sometimes you go to a War Games event and all they've done is use the game that they're running as an opportunity to get in for free. And what they're not doing is showing off the hobby in the best possible light. There's a lot of talk about the greying and the hobby. If we want to get people interested, if we want to get people hooked, it's about providing that hook. Yeah, you've got to have a good looking table, but you've also got to be ready to talk to them and have that conversation. And freeloading parasites who and I'm being intentionally provocative here, obviously, but really, if you're going to go to a war game show, you've got to be thinking, I'm on stage, I'm there, I've got to put on the best show that I possibly can. You've got to have people who are tasked with talking to the audience as well as just running the game. And I would say, I'm not going to burn you at the stake if you're not doing that, but I would seriously say, think about it. If you are putting on a game, you've got a great opportunity to show people who are turning up for the first time, youngsters who've never been to an event before, old people who've never been to an event before, who could look at your game and go, that really, really ticks all the boxes for me. But you're the one who's got to tick those boxes by having that interface with them, by having that social intercourse with them, by having that conversation. So that's what I just really want. I really want to see the quality of what we're doing when we're in the shop window of gaming being as good as it gets. So, yeah.
I can't argue with that. I think freeloading parasites might have tipped it over the edge of where I would have gone with the discussion.
I thought we were in Yorkshire, Ken. I thought we had to be plain speaking.
It's negative though, isn't it, for the hobby? I mean, it's a negative thing if you do that, because you're taking, if there's 11 of you paying £10 and you're taking £110 out of the possible gate money of that event, and you're doing nothing with it. In fact, you're putting a negative, you're having a negative impact on what people see when they come in the door. So you're taking from the hobby rather than putting into the hobby.
Yeah.
And I don't see it a lot, and I actually think, Rich, we see it less than we used to. I think actually the situation's changed a lot in recent years, but it does. I think it does still happen.
We went to a show not that long ago, Nick, where we saw people on the table near us just turn up and get absolutely slaughtered.
Yes, and fall asleep,
passing out through booze.
Yeah.
Now, nobody likes to drink more than me. I mean, literally, nobody likes to drink more than me. But I don't do it when I'm at a war game show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do it after the war game show and pass out and get abusive, but I don't do it at the show.
Yeah, there used to be some guys who would always put on a show at Triples, which was like obviously a 2-day event, and they would tend to get slaughtered by sort of 2:00 on the Saturday afternoon.
Should be called Tipples.
Yeah, and then, but instead of falling asleep, they would vociferously argue about the rules to the point where it nearly came to blows. And then you would go back, because we would always go back for the second day, and they would just be sat there. Clearly, they're drunk, like the after effects of the drink, and they've fallen out because of yesterday's argument, and they wouldn't talk to each other. And it was It was one of the
That's
best parts
bonkers.
of the show. It was just brilliant.
But,
Can we go up and see if they're arguing?
That is bonkers. But what's the impact of that for people who go to that show on a Sunday? You know, it's a wholly negative experience. They just wander around, see a table that's completely disinteresting and disinterested. Doesn't add to the hobby, does it? Really? I think we demand higher standards now as a society, as a community of gamers. We demand higher standards from games at shows, and I think that's probably the space people should try to put themselves in.
Yeah, I think that certainly the larger shows are able to pick and choose games, especially
Yeah.
Partisan, and if you go there and you put on a good display game, you interact with the public, and people are talking about your game, then Partisan are going to ask you back next year.
Yeah.
There's very few groups who are just turning up to game themselves there, and I would suggest that they probably wouldn't come back the following year if they did. But there's an advantage there for them that they have people wanting to come to their show to put a game on, whereas a more regional show up north, you might not have the choice of games to put on. But yes, I the vault is closing behind me. Freeloading Parasites has entered. Has entered Wargames Room 101 with unpainted flag edges and competition games and barking dogs. They're all in there.
It's a security alert.
It is. The freeloading parasites are attacking the compound.
They're in. Are they zombie freeloading parasites?
I better go and let him out. He loves freeloading parasites for lunch. Hold on.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Well, there you are. That's the truth of it, though.
Yeah,
I mean, there is an element of truth to that. It's an extreme view, but we've all seen it.
Yeah.
And I think we don't want to see it anymore.
No, I think it is on the way out. I think more people through things like the podcasts and stuff like that are more aware of people's views on it. Before this sort of thing, I don't ever remember. I mean, there might well have been an article in one of the magazines saying, "Stop being a twat and speak to people at shows." When you're putting a game on, and I think the podcast and the YouTube channels have kind of brought it more out as an issue that people are now aware of. Yes,
yeah, and I think if you want to go to a show, pay the door money and go to a show.
Yeah,
if I'm blurbing and blubbing because I half agree what I'm going to say, but half trying to find the right way to say it. But I know that when we go to shows, sometimes you don't get to go around the show because you are glued to the table.
I've had that.
Very often I go to Partisan or Salute, and people say, "What did you buy?" I say, "Well, nothing."
Nothing. That's
because
it. Nothing.
I might have had a walk around for 10 minutes to get a break from the table, but I'm not there as a punter. We're there to do other stuff.
No, I totally agree. My purchasing list from Wargame shows in the last 10 years will not have come to £100 for the whole lot.
Yeah,
all of them, because I just literally never get a chance.
Is that because people give you loads of free stuff?
No, is it? Fuck. I normally say no to free stuff because I don't want it, and I don't want to be in a position.
No, very true.
And then I say, no, definitely not. Like, see me round the back. I'll have as much as you got.
Put it in a skip round the back. I'll pick it up later on.
Yeah. Load the motor up. No.
Well, what I've done now, here's my top tip, is I've started a Fiasco, which was 3 weeks ago. I did my shopping at 9 o'clock before the doors opened, and the most of the trade had set up. And I kind of bullied them into switching the cash tappy thing on, getting some things that way. So I'd done all my shopping before the punters came in. So
it's the only way to do it if you're doing it, because then you can focus on what is really your job for the day. Your job for the day is to fly the flag for Wargame. It's really important. We've got a fucking brilliant hobby.
Yeah.
We've got an absolutely gobsmackingly great hobby. We just need to make sure that when people have their first interface with it, they go, wow, that is brilliant. I want part of that. We've only got one chance because they won't come back again.
No, it's something that I try and do on every game that I run. And we never ever get to a conclusion in a game at a show, and we never intend
No.
to be fair. Well, that's brilliant, that. So thank you very much for that. And we've just got the final section of the features section to go through before we have a little bit of a large chat. And that's the Desert Island Wargame. And Nick, you didn't do this when you were on the show. So I'm going to give you an opportunity once again to join in. So just like Desert Island Discs, you are allowed to take one war game of any size or type on your desert island. So, Nick, what would you like to take with you?
I've no idea. What would I take with me? Any war game of any type or any kind,
Whatever
right?
you want.
Yeah, what about the people to play it with? Do they come too, or do I have to play it? Is it a solo game? What's the rules around
It's
this?
whatever you want, any size, any. The people would appear to play the game with you. It could be anything you want. It could be a
Right.
board game, figure game, you
Okay.
name it.
Well, this would change with every day of the week and every hour of the day, quite possibly. So at the moment, do you know what? It's a game that I haven't played yet.
Ooh.
But it is a chain of command game. But I want to do chain of command, and I want to go into Germany, in northwest Germany, and do some of those actions, some of those horrible grinding actions around Gielenkirchen and places like that. And I take that with me at the moment if I was shipwrecked right this minute, because if I wasn't doing this right now, and you said to me, what else could you do? What I'd love to do is say, get that table set up and start playing some of those Northwest German games, 1945. Is that
That's
an okay
absolutely
answer?
fine if that's the game you want to take. Rich, what would you be?
Now it is.
Rich, what would you be taking onto your desert island?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I feel that with Nick having said Chain of Command, I ought to say Sharp Practice.
2 World Cup winners on one island.
Absolutely right. I would take Chain of Command with me if I could only ever play one war game again, because whilst I really enjoy Sharp Practice is a huge, delicious trifle covered in strawberries and cream and all the things that you like to have for fun, whereas Chain of Command is a roast beef dinner, and it's solid, and you have to think about it a bit more. I think as an intellectual challenge, as a game, I would enjoy it probably a little bit more than you can never have too much roast beef. You can have too much trifle. So it would be Chain of Command.
Chain of Command is the mushy peas of wargaming.
I don't like mushy peas.
Well, what could be better than taking a World Cup winning set of rules onto a desert island?
Exactly. True.
Exactly. I hope the next version is going to come out with World Cup winning in the corner, like on the front. There'll be trouble if it isn't. Trouble, I tell you. So, second thing you can take onto the desert island is a book. We've already got, as you're aware from the Radio 2 show, the religious book of your choice, the full work of Shakespeare. So let's go with Nick again. What's your first book?
I'm going to go and get it. So put a sound of footsteps in whilst I go and get it.
Why don't you do the footsteps by using your feet, or do you roll across the room?
He'll have one of them noise dampening carpets, I bet. Where's he gone?
Probably. It's all deep pile.
Is he? Well, while he's doing Rich. Oh, he's back. Right, here we go.
He's back.
The Noddy Annual, 1967.
No. Right, I've spoken about this book before. It remains the book that motivated me, and in fact, it's from my school library. It's a book. It's called The War Game, and it was edited by. I can't remember who it was edited by now. Who's it edited by? It's a kind of A4 size book. General editor Peter Young,
Brigadier,
DSO, MC, MA, FSA, FR, HIST S, FRGS, no less. And it's basically 10 actions from history and wargaming them. Thermopylae, Agincourt, Edge Hill, Blenheim, Lobositz, Saratoga, Austerlitz, Waterloo, Gettysburg, Al Alamein.
Awesome.
And I still have a dream. I have a dream to bring that book as kind of another version of that book through to print at some point, because it motivated me massively when I was a kid. Great pictures, great articles, and it's my absolutely die in a ditch book that I would take with me. It's the one book that I come and salvage. Actually, it isn't, because actually I have other books that are much more valuable that I might try and salvage first. But I would definitely want to make sure that was in there too.
Awesome choice. Awesome choice. Rich?
Well, if I'm on a desert island on my own and it could be a long stay, I'd probably take the best of Razzle. But aside from that, I think maybe a more dishonest answer would be a Clausewitz on war, because I think there's so much to think about in Clausewitz, because in a way his writing is potentially slightly enigmatic. Because I think, being a smart ass, he knows that if he nails his colours completely to the mast, somebody will prove him wrong. So every and the way Some Krieg is written, it's almost like a daily book that you could read a paragraph and then contemplate that paragraph all day. Do I agree? How do I feel about that? It's very bite-sized. It's a brilliant lavatorial read, because it's presented in quite pithy short sections. But if I'm honest, it would probably be the best of Razzle.
Excellent choice. Not Readers' Wives?
No, I don't know.
No, because that's they're all queuing up for Dave, aren't they?
They are, mate.
They
They
are.
are. And the memory of that housewife superstar being free and at liberty while I was trapped on Devil's Island would be too much to bear.
Yes, let's draw a very thick veil over that conversation. So finally, it's a Wargames unit, so it can be something from the past, something you covet that belongs to a friend, or something that has a special meaning to you that's yours. So have you got one, Nick, that you would like to? What would your one Wargame unit be?
I'm gonna have. I love my recce. I love my recce, Daimlers and Dingoes World War II, but I also love the airborne recce, and I love my glider pilots as well. So those would be mine, all three of them, because they only take up a little bit of room.
Yeah. There's something dashing about a recce unit, isn't there? I don't particularly want to have volunteered for one, because the go down that road and get the shit shot out of you is not my idea of fun, and the life expectancy would be kind of down the lower end.
There's obviously more to it than just getting shot, mate. Sometimes you can shoot back, but also it's the range of games they could potentially give you as well. Recce forces are really interesting in the way they're composed, the armaments they have, the weapons they use, and you can have some quite intricate games around recce with some fairly subtle objectives. That's more than just the classic infantry armor slog or whatever. So I like recce games. I like those little. Do you know what, recce of all periods, actually, even if it's just kind of a Napoleonic light cavalry screen or something, there's something quite interesting about that too.
Yeah, you kind of having to use your mind and because you're usually not heavily armored in a recce unit. You're kind of using your mind and brain and tactics to get yourself out of the shit. To go back and tell the guys with the big guns that's where they are. Yeah.
And there's always an element of manoeuvre with recce.
Yeah.
By definition.
Yeah, you don't want to dig in when the thing that you're in does 50 miles an hour.
No, stand still and die. You've got to keep moving. Yeah.
Lovely choice, Nick. And Rich, finally, your Wargames unit that you'd like to take?
Well, the Wargames unit I'd really like to take, I've got and I've painted and I've never used it. And that is a Volksgrenadier unit from the winter of 1944. It's a platoon of Volksgrenadier. And I like it because I assembled it from all different makes of figures and manufacturers. And I did quite a bit of converting, putting hoods on and things like that. And I've never got to use it, and I don't know why not. But it's one of the prettiest units I've ever done, and I based it for winter, but not with snow, with lots of sort of frosty tufts, and I put a lot of work into it. And I think the fact that I would have that and think I really must play with this one day would allow me to think soon a big boat will come and I'll be rescued. Hopefully, Melinda Messenger will be driving the boat, but that's another issue.
Yeah, exactly. She's been name dropped a couple of times, and the younger viewers, if you're going to Google it at home, maybe do it away from your partner. That's all I'm going to say. just to make sure you don't get in trouble. Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So I just want to, if we can, just finish off with some general lard updates, news, etc. And I promise not to. I kind of promise not to go down the when's this rule set coming out. But I'd just like to go back to my introduction and the cult of lard. So
Waffle.
So, for those who don't know, Rich, where did this come from? I think you found it on a website somewhere, didn't you?
I don't know.
About Lardies being a cult, and they were answering stuff back.
Was it a Twitter comment or something? Probably sounds like the sort of thing on Twitter you might come across.
It was somewhere. It suggested there was a sort of cult of it, and it made me laugh. I just thought, oh, really? But I honestly can't remember where it came from. But lots of people picked up on it and were having a laugh and joke about it and all that. It just strikes me as weird. I think what tends to happen in the hobby is you get more counter cults. So the cult is against something rather than for it. You will get a lot of people who say, I really like Chain of Command. But you also get a lot of people who say, I really like Bolt Action, or I really like Hail Caesar. But the people who are the real cults are the ones who hate that rule set. I don't hate any rule sets. I like the game sets I game. But if you want to game a set of rules by Bert Scroggins that specialises in whatever, that's great if that's what you're enjoying. But some people really don't like it, that other people like a game they don't like. And they're the people who are the sort of strike me as the bit of the weird cultists, because they'll do anything they can to make a negative comment about the set of rules that they don't like. And you think, I don't know what you're attempting to do here. I understand that you don't like a set of rules. But my mum once said to me, before we buried her, if you can't find anything nice to say about something, say nout. Say nothing at all. And it's a fairly simple piece of advice from a fairly simple woman. But it's not bad advice. If you don't like something, if your wife comes in and goes, look at my lovely new shoes, you don't go, Jesus Christ, where do you get them? They're awful. You go, they're nice. And that's all you have to say. Just, if you don't like something, zip up and go and play something else. So I've never found a cult of lard at all. I've found a lot of people having fun and enjoying lard, and I have found a sad small number of people who hate the fact that other people are enjoying something they don't like. But that's a kind of counter cult, isn't it?
Well, I just love the fact that lard, what is it? People say, oh, lard. I don't know what lard really means, really. I don't know what to say. I'm a lardy. What does that even mean?
Lard, mate, is a four-letter word.
I know, but we're kind of. I guess we're at the centre of it, but even we would struggle to put a definition on it. And I think that's all right. It's okay with that, isn't it? It's what it is. It's what people want it to be. It's something to enjoy. I think that terminology sometimes make it sound like it's got that kind of cultishness about it. But it's just plain toy soldiers, really, isn't it? Is that right? Is that what it is?
That's exactly what it is. And it's that trivial. It's not important. Don't get upset about it. It's just people having a laugh.
Some people are extremely tribal in their wargaming beliefs, and I think it's true in any walk of life. And
well, look at football. How many anybody but United? Do you remember a few years ago when Manchester United were winning a lot of things? A lot of people, anybody but United, they were against something they didn't like more than what they did like. It's just nature of human beings.
A bit like Huddersfield Town.
I don't even know what Huddersfield is.
I won't say the nickname on air that Bradford fans give them, but it's not. It's not nice. It's not. It's not nice. But what I found is rather than a cult, there's more of a community around lard, and there is and this is speaking, as an outsider really, because a lot of stuff that I do, although I very much enjoy the sets of rules that you produce, they're below the scale of game that I normally play. But I found when I've brought stuff to Lard Days that everyone has been extremely welcoming and everyone is there to have a good time rather than repeatedly roll double sixes and table their opponents. I, have you worked hard at that community, or have you just got lucky?
Oh, I think we just got lucky in a way. I mean, we've always felt that we've always tried to do the decent thing in terms of representing the hobby and tried to be as welcoming as possible to people who've wanted to do what we're doing. And I think there's a kind of mindset that when Toofatlardies started, it was very much at the age of Yahoo groups, when Yahoo groups were just really starting up.
Yeah.
And what that created was one great big community.
Yeah.
Everybody who was interested would join the Yahoo group. It was really easy for us. We'd go to the Yahoo group every morning. People have asked questions. We'd answer them. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no all these other social media areas, because the hobby is now fragmented to a much greater degree. It's impossible for me to go to all the different forums and all the different places and keep in contact. But what happened, we were very lucky that for the first 10 years of Toofatlardies, we had one place where everybody camped out. And it was a bit like a big wargaming Glastonbury, if you like. Everybody knew where to go. Now, one minute you might be talking about a game you played, but the next minute you might be talking about what you were cooking for lunch, or the next minute you might be talking about the best place to buy paints, or where do you get your socks darned if you've got a hole in them. It evolved as a community, and because that community was in one place, it became one sort of entity. But that was just completely by accident. It happened to be there. Once Yahoo groups sort of disappeared and it became IO, and before that, once all the other social media came along, it became a lot harder to maintain that. But by that point, we'd got things like the Lardy Games Days up and running. Now, they're not things that we run. What happened to us, the first Lardy Games Day, which is about 10 years ago now, Aid Deacon in Evesham emailed me and he said, I'm thinking about running a day of Lardy Games. Would you come along? I said, if there's beer and curry, I'll be there. So that was a throwaway comment, but he organised it with a day of gaming, followed by beer and curry in the evening, where we all sat down and we all gathered round the table and we all had a meal together and we all ate. And I think when you break bread with people, when you get into that situation, not when you go to a canteen and you go and sit with your mates on that table over there and I go and sit with the mates on that table over there, but we're all round this big table, and it again, that community feeling was there, and that became a bit of a stamp that other people tried to follow. It became the pattern that other people followed, and that has really worked. And we've got Lardy Games Days here, there, and everywhere now, including Australia and America and whatever. And we do, and we have really tried to attend them because it's a great opportunity. We see it as a great opportunity to do what we're trying to do at the Wargames shows, which is be outward looking. What we're very keen to see is that Lardy Games Days are an opportunity for people not to be a closed clique where all the spaces are taken by people who come along every year and it's the same group. We want to see 25% of the people there new to Toofatlardies rules, who've not played the game before. We want to see organisers setting aside space for new people who can say, I've never played Chain of Command before, I've never played Sharp Practice before, I've never played a Lardy game before. And it's a great opportunity for them to come and learn the game in a really sociable, non-competitive environment where they can be taught the rules by people who know them. They're taught the rules by people who've got the armies. They don't have to paint loads of figures. They can just turn up, come along, have a great day playing games, and then come and have a couple of beers and a bit of a curry and a chat and talk about their experiences and why did that happen? Why do these rules work like that? And by accident rather than design, it's created a fabulous community that means a huge amount to both of us being serious. We've got great friends out of that community. Yeah. And what we both felt really, really strongly about and try and emphasise at all points, it's not hierarchical. We're not in charge. We don't run the Lardy Games Days. We are just a couple of gamers going along to enjoy ourselves and play games with other people. So if anything, we've actively attempted to combat any sense of a cult. Although I do like the idea of having a big cultist hat with horns, curly horns, and a big cloak. But putting that aside, it's what's happened is a community has grown that has been outward looking, like we've said about the games. There are no, what was the expression? Freeloading parasites. It's about a welcoming community. And I think that's really important. And you hit the word on the head. It's not a cult, it's a community. Harder to spell, but a much better word.
Nice.
I can't add anything to that. I agree 100% to it. And in fact, actually, what's really lovely, you said about people playing their first Lardy game sets. What's really lovely also at Games Days is you get people playing their first ever war game. And that's really lovely.
And the friendship.
Because you can beat them easily. You can easily win if they don't know the rules. No. But no, obviously it's just nice to share that with somebody. And it's nice that people can bring their mates who don't war game and bring them in the room and say, this is what we do and how it all works. And they say, well, that's quite interesting. I quite like that. That was good fun. Thanks very much.
And what we've actively tried to do is counter the nerd image of war games.
Yes.
I said at the very outset, if we're going to go on tour and we're going to do this, I don't want this to be a collective about being nerdy. I want this to be a rugby tour with wargaming. And unfortunately, my behaviour has generally meant that is the case.
Well, so, I think both of you have spoke many times on many other shows about your love of history and how important it is that the rules reflect the history. But I think less talked about and more as equally important for me is and I'm pretty sure, I don't know whether it's intentional or not, but you guys bring humour into it, whether it's the name of one of the characters in one of your games, or and I believe it is accidental, but the big cock thing. I don't know whether the chain of command was accidental or not. Please feel free to not answer that if you need to. But obviously that's a generational thing.
Well, I think for us, the view certainly I had when I was a younger man was that this hobby took itself very seriously, and so actually to have the opposite view, to be somebody who kind of wanted to kind of parody in some ways some of those ridiculous kind of attitudes that used to be seen a lot. We would come up with some of these things, like just like a punk rock methodology, really, just because we could, just because we thought it'd be a funny thing to call it, So, the first set of rules we wrote, I ain't been shot, mum. Ridiculous name for a set of war games rules, but partly because all the other rules were like that kind of classic, I don't know, whatever they were.
Nazi connotations, Panzerreichsführer, the new World War II rules.
And we just thought, what? We're all taking this too seriously, so we'll call it something. Toofatlardies itself is a massive, massive pun, of course. So it should be fun, and we wanted to have fun, and we wanted to be seen to be having fun, I guess.
I went to a very serious wargaming event in 1984, and I was playing a game with some guys some of whom I knew, but some of whom I'd not met before. And we were having a laugh because we were enjoying the game.
Yeah.
And a very famous wargaming celebrity came over and remonstrated with us because we were laughing, and we shouldn't have been laughing because it was a serious war game. Then the event was a serious wargaming event. And if we wanted to laugh, we shouldn't be there. And I told him where to go. And my attitude ever since then is, I'm doing this because I love history, but I want to enjoy my wargaming. History informs my wargaming. Wargaming is completely intertwined with my study of history and appreciation of history. But when I play a game, I'm playing a bloody game, and I want to have a laugh with the people I'm playing a game with. And that's been really important for me, and that's why you'll never see me run a tournament. I've never played a tournament game. I've nothing against people who want to play a tournament game, but it doesn't tick any boxes for me. And so the emphasis has always been on having fun, enjoying yourself. And part of having fun is making sure other people are enjoying it with you. When you start playing a game with somebody, you've got an unwritten contract that says, I want to enjoy this, but part of that is making sure that you enjoy that too. And I think that's just part of the ethos. Nothing clever about that. We're just doing what any decent people would do.
No, and I think credit to you both for keeping that in, because with humour, as I found out many times on this podcast, there is always a danger of somebody being offended by you having a joke about something. And I think that the community that we spoke about earlier has latched on to that sense of the way that you guys look at things, and kind of everyone has the same round that table having a curry. Everyone's having a laugh and a joke about Dave rolling double one repeatedly. Poor guy. Poor guy.
That's the benefit of friendship, isn't it? You have a laugh with people that you enjoy being with. And I think one of the best things about the Lardy community is seeing the real friendships that have emerged from that, and people who, made lifelong friends. I think there's everything, and that's not the Toofatlardies. That's this hobby. This hobby can do that for anybody, and that's why it's such a brilliant hobby, because we can enjoy the things that we can enjoy with people that we enjoy being with. And I think that's really worth promoting, which is why, I like the things that I like, but I'm against things that present a bad image of the hobby, like certain awful websites, like certain people who just use their place on the biggest stage in wargaming just to get in for free. All these things are negative for the hobby.
Coming out of the humour, then, it's surprising that there was never a Carry On film, Carry On Wargaming. So I wondered who would play the Lardies in a Carry On Wargaming film.
I've no idea.
I'm going for Kenneth Williams for Sydney. For Sydney, I'm going for Kenneth Williams.
I'd have to play Sid James. I want Sid James to play me.
Babs Windsor for Rich.
I'd definitely be Babs. Definitely be Babs. Yeah. I knew Barbara. I knew Babs. I had a boozer just down the road from when she had a nightclub just up the road, and lovely lady, interesting collection of friends.
I think of all the questions you've asked us, Ken, that's the most bonkers one.
No, Sid and I played a great game. We played Wargaming Celebrity Squares.
I know you.
We were on our way back from Wargame
God.
show. So remember the old Celebrity Squares thing?
Yes,
nine celebrities. You had to name the 9 famous Wargamers, and then who would play them in the Celebrity Squares version. So we had people like Christopher Biggins in there playing certain celebrity wargamer and things like that. And it was quite fun to go through and decide who would play who. And Sid decided that I should be played by Leslie Grantham, who played Dirty Den in EastEnders.
Dirty Den. Wow.
It was
Ken
a
on there?
stupid
Did he have,
name, but it
was Ken on there? I don't recall. I wasn't part of the conversation, but you told
well,
me about it.
yeah, he was.
Was Ken on there? Who played Ken? Do you remember?
I can't tell him, mate. I can't tell him. Can't tell him.
I have a feeling I might have been Arthur Mullard.
You were Arthur Mullard, yeah. Arthur Mullard.
How did I know that?
It's actually Michael Parkinson played Ken.
Michael Parkinson, the great Parky.
Yeah, the great, the late great Parky. Is he late?
Oh, no, bless him. He is, yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Sadly passed away recently, didn't he?
Yeah, I thought so. What a star that man was! What a star! But then you've taken up the mantle, Ken.
Yeah, you are
taken up the mantle of Michael Parkinson, whereas
the
Nick
Parkinson of wargaming.
Taking up the mantle of Arthur Mullard. I know which one I'd rather be.
So, you have normally then your Sydney does your battlefield challenges where you do a video. So my Yorkshire Gamer challenge is that when you do your next battlefield challenge, is that Rich needs to recreate the scene from Carry On Camping where Babs Windsor's bra flies off.
Yeah. Well, if Dave will lend me some of the bras that he gets through the post, I can try doing that. I can try giving it all
that. Oh dear me. I don't know where to go from there, to be honest.
Psychiatric help is normally where people go to, Ken.
No, it's normally a good one. So, Nick, you have a day job, don't you, as well as doing the lardy stuff?
Yeah, well, not today. It looks like because I'm spending my whole day talking to you.
Oh, he's getting all Alex Southern on me. Alex goes, when's this bloody going to end? When's it going to end?
Yes, that's correct. Dear. I mean, Richard took the decision many years ago to invest himself fully and wholeheartedly in Toofatlardies. Wasn't big enough for the both of us. And I've stuck with my own furrow, which is great because it gives me a different dimension on the hobby. Gives us space to do our own thing as well, and also keeps paying my mortgage.
Always a good thing. Always a good thing. But both of you have said in other interviews I've heard with you, and you mentioned at the start of the podcast about this kind of fallow period that you're having. With you're not going to events so much over the coming weeks. So can being so heavily involved in the hobby from a business perspective take the shine off it from a personal hobby perspective?
No. What can happen is you go to so many bloody events, you don't end up doing the business stuff you need to. I've been trying to get Midgard finished. I've been trying to get General D'Armée finished. I've been trying to get the Far East Handbook finished. But I've been going to so many blooming events, literally in far-flung corners of here, there and everywhere, that you say, oh, it's a one-day event. But yeah, you spend a day travelling to get there. You spend another day afterwards travelling to get home. You then have 3 or 4 days post to catch up on and 3 or 4 days correspondence to catch up on. And then the accountant says, I need this. And all of a sudden, that's 5 days gone out of a week and you've actually achieved nothing at all. And that's what's been happening. I've been going to so many events. I haven't been able to finish off the projects that we've got. And we did have a logjam with a lot of projects arriving in the hopper at the same time, which is problematic. So but does that take the edge off it? No, not at all. I mean, when I took this on as a full-time business, I spoke to somebody really well known in the hobby. He said, oh, that's it. That's the end of your hobby. It's a business now. It won't be your hobby any longer. And I thought, bloody hell, that worried me because I love wargaming. Absolutely. It's always, to be honest with you, it's been my life other than Carlsberg. That's never happened. And one of the reasons it's never happened is that if I think, oh, I really fancy doing that, I allow myself to go and do that, even if it slows down some of the other projects. And I think you've got to do that in order to keep motivated and maintained. So, no, it doesn't get in the way. What gets in the way is it gets in the way of you actually doing the hard graft that you really need to do, because the Wargames events that we go to are very much the icing on the cake. but I need a cake to base the icing on.
Mm,
And if I haven't got time to bake the cake, there's no point having the icing. So that's the problem for me. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. It is exhausting. Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, putting a game on at a weekend show for me is exhausting. So doing it week after week,
yeah.
and drinking cooking lager and eating lots of curry,
Yeah.
all of it is it's a terrible life.
Hard yards, mate. Hard yards. But somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, we'll just finish off. We'll have a couple of questions, and we'll finish off. And I'm sure, and I think I've been in conversations or next to conversations at shows with you around this, is that people will approach you with sets of rules to publish, and kind of wonder what was the weirdest suggestion you've ever had for a lard product.
I think, I mean, nobody said, what was that game I once mentioned? Giant Pixies on Uranus or something like that. Space Pixies on Uranus. Nobody ever came to me with a rule set called that. If they had, I might have been interested in publishing it. What you get are people who are really, really, really interested in one aspect of history. And they go, I've written a fabulous set of rules for the war of something really obscure, and they think that is a good reason to publish it. Well, I wrote a really, really great set of rules for the Boer War, but I never published it because it's commercial suicide. It costs a lot of money to produce a set of rules. I mean, when we published the first edition of Chain of Command, I think the production costs were approaching £30,000, and that's over 10 years ago, once you take into account dice, tokens, all the other ancillary stuff. It has to stack up financially. And I think that's one of the real shames about the way rules are produced now. For years, we kicked against going full colour because we wanted to be able to produce cover the more obscure stuff. Like If the Lord Spares Us. We could never publish that in full colour. We could never publish that today at the standard that we do with something like What a Cowboy. And that's a true shame. And if we published it in black and white, it wouldn't, or a more cheap and cheerful version, it wouldn't sell. So even people go, but you can publish it in black and white and it'll be cheaper to produce. Yes, but the cost involved of producing a rule set is not what you shell out of your wallet. It's the fact, for example, I've been working on General Dame 2 for nearly several months now. Midgard, James and I have been editing that since March or April. That's a huge investment in time. And to do that with a set of rules that's going to sell 100 copies, I understand people's aspirations, but it has to make financial sense for me, because otherwise I go bankrupt and no more Toofatlardies.
Yeah.
So
understandable.
So I think nobody's come up with anything particularly weird, but just obscure is probably the better word.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, somebody produced a set of 6mm Emu Wars figures, didn't they? So
yeah.
I'd love to know what the sales numbers on that was.
Yeah, well, but look at 2mm Ancients with Mark Backhouse's brilliant strength and honour rules. Now, I don't think there's many companies out there that would publish them, but they are such a good set of rules. But it's important that some commercial decisions are saying, look, I'm not going to make money on this. I just don't want to lose money on this because this is a really important set of rules to get out there. So we try and be there. We try and be innovative. We try and be producing rules that are innovative and at the cutting edge. But sometimes things are so obscure that you can't back that particular horse, which is a shame. But the other thing is that tremendous pressure in terms of, while I'm producing other stuff at the moment, I'm not producing stuff that I want to write, and I have to get that balance right. So
no, understandable. So the final question from me then is, and we'll go with Nick with this one: is there a perfect set of rules? Is there ever going to be a perfect set of rules?
Well, if there is, we haven't written it. Or ever will. Is there ever such a thing as a perfect set of rules? Well, to answer the question, there probably is, but it's an aspirational thing. We keep writing rules. I think I mean people who write rules, not just Rich and I. And Rich writes a lot more than I do. That's a fact. but the other people who are writing things, it's the pursuit of perfection, isn't it, that keeps quality moving forwards. It's not about what you attain, it's in the kind of quality you achieve on the journey towards that. And we're getting better. I think rules are getting better. I think we're getting cleverer at bringing together key concepts in a way that's increasingly playable. I think some of the game mechanisms are really quite advanced now, but there's still loads of space for things to get better. And things will change as well. Things will have more emphasis depending on how people see things, if that makes sense. There's a kind of cultural movement, isn't there? We'll shine a light on a different part of a game, and that will influence the way that we want to write rules about it. So I think it's an aspiration, but having the aspiration, always wanting to do better than you did last time, is no bad aspiration. And that's what I think rule writers, I think that's a good thing for them to bear in mind.
Rich, what do you think?
Perfect set of rules. Well, it's something you aspire to, but I think rules are like television sets. When I was a kid, the television set was black and white, and then I remember going to my nan's and she'd rented a colour television from Radio Rentals, and you think, wow, that's as good as it can get. And for a while it was as good as it can get, but when I look at the 800-inch flat screen, this, that and the other, 3D that we've got now, you think, wow, that's as good as it can get. But I tell you what, in 5 years' time, we'll be going, blimey, this one's even better. And I think rules are like that. It's in a constant state of development, I hope. One of the things that has concerned me is that with rules, there often tends to be the inclination to copy the type of style of what's gone before, and particularly reshell the same P. I hope that we continue to have a hobby in which people are being innovative with rules and trying different mechanisms and trying different ideas. Because I think that's when rules are exciting and interesting. And that's not something that historical wargames, figure wargaming has always been that good at. If you look at what's happened with board wargaming or board gaming, you will see huge amount of innovation in board gaming that's been happening over the last 20 years. Whereas in historical wargaming, often it's the case of producing a mirror of what's gone before on the basis that, people know that game and therefore they're comfortable with the mechanisms. Doesn't mean it's the best game.
I think that, if I cast my mind back 20 years, it used to be that you'd open a set of rules and the first thing it would have is ground scale, time scale, troop types, movement, melee, firing, morale. That was the framework that everything worked around. And I think really innovative rules now, breaking away from that set structure and finding cleaner ways to have those same mechanisms, the same principles are in there, but they're not in that same paradigm, if you like. They're not in that same lineup. So there's slightly different ways of thinking about it, slightly more multifaceted aspects of games. And Rich is right. Board games are really good at providing different mechanisms. And I think as tabletop historical war game designers, there's a lot we can learn from that kind of approach. So I think the best is yet to come, mate.
Oh, awesome answer. Awesome answer. I have to say that for me, a perfect set of rules can be a time and a place and a group of people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
It's perfect for that moment in time. And we often look back, I'm sure all of us do, on games that we would have played in our teenage years that we absolutely loved and enjoyed. And we go back and read the rules now and we kind of go, Jesus, how did I get through this?
That's how we started. We had a set of rules that we'd been playing. We hadn't played it for 5 years. We said, let's revisit that. And we got them out, we put them on the table, and we thought, blood and sand, these are awful. And so we let's see what we can do. And that's where it all began.
So finally, I'll give Nick an opportunity to plug the Lard magazine. I believe that the requirement for articles, etc., is on at the moment. So what are you looking for, Nick? How can people get hold of you and get articles to you?
Okay, well, so Lard magazine is a PDF magazine that we produce annually around this time of year. We normally try to get it out before Christmas if we can, so that people have got something to enjoy over that festive break. Because it's a PDF, We've got no necessarily limits on what we can include. We don't have to keep it to 64 pages or whatever. And over the last few years, it's been, well, I can't remember how many pages we've had, Rich, but it's been, 120 plus, even 160, I don't know, lots and lots of pages.
Heading towards 200.
It's written by the community for the community. So if you have a scenario that's a Chain of Command scenario, or some ideas about using light troops in Strength and Honor, or a campaign about sharp practice, or some Bag the Hun scenarios you want to play, or some thoughts about Turkish infantry in Itlsu, that can all go in there. If the Lord spares us, that can all go in. Anything that's around a Toofatlardies or Rise of its Press product. So O-Group stuff is fine. Pickett's Charge is all in there as well. So actually, what it now means is it's a real wide-ranging feast of content, but written by people. What we ask them to do is send in their contributions to us, so they can DM us or message us via social media to find out how to do that, and we will do the editing and put it together, and make sure that we try and get pictures looking in a way that's okay for publication, and do maps and that kind of stuff. So if you have an idea, if you have a scenario, if you have a thought in your head that you want to put down on paper, it's a great space to put it out there.
Excellent. And do people necessarily need to have their own photographs to go with their own articles?
Not necessarily. Necessarily. We can normally source photos if we need to. If they're going to have a map, it's nice for them to send us a sketch of what that map needs to look like, or maybe a photo of a game that they've played, so we can see what the map table looks like. Put that in there. But no, there's no need for that. There's no word limit. Obviously, it's got to be interesting. We won't publish any old stuff. But
unless I've written it.
Unless right, yeah.
Different sizes and types of static grass and static grass applicators.
Yeah, but we've got some good content already received. I can what we've got so far. I'm just looking at my editorial Trello, because we do try to be organised with these things. We've got some East Africa scenarios for Bag the Hun already received. We've got some stuff from John Savage, who's always a good contributor. Gunfight at the OK Corral, we think will be in there for What a Cowboy.
Strength and Honor, we've got Strength and Honor stuff.
We've got some stuff in there, some stuff about What a Tanker, maybe incorporating some ideas about incorporating infantry, What a Tanker, that might be in there. Things about how you base figures. Sydney's even promised to write us something, so God knows what that will be. But we got content. Anybody is welcome to contribute.
That is fantastic. I can't thank you enough for your time today, gentlemen. It's been most appreciated. I do always end up with people asking me a question if you have one. If you don't, we shall end the podcast. Rich, have you got a question for me?
Do you moisturise?
I do actually.
I must explain
Nivea for men.
Your ever youthful looks, mate. That's clearly what it is. I should try it.
Is that Nivea? I don't know.
Yeah, my question, Ken, relates to the podcast. I'd like to know what are we going to do in the second half.
We're going to ask Sidney whether we've gone over our allotted time span, and whether we have our purpose, whether the two guests that I've had on were worth it, which I'm sure you were. So just takes us to say goodnight to all the listeners. So if you'd like to say goodnight.
Good night, all the listeners.
Good night, all the listeners, and their friends and families too.
And everyone else who knows me.
Good night, Mum. So there we go, another episode over and done with. And thank you very much to Rich and Nick for their time. And sadly, we'll never know what Rich said in between parts 3 and 4. It just didn't record. I'll let you all work it out for yourselves. But I had great fun doing that episode of Rich and Nick. Two great lads, two great ambassadors for the hobby. And if you're not familiar with their rules, I'd certainly get down and give them a go, or try one of the Lardies days where meet a great bunch of people, and you can join in with people who know the rules and can help you along with the mechanisms that are involved, and then have a few beers and a curry afterwards. After all, what else is wargaming around? So, 50 episodes. We did it. Thank you very much. No plans of going away anywhere. I am going to put back some episodes. I made a big mistake last year of trying to cram everything in to December that I had planned for the year, and I ended up burning out and then not doing a podcast for quite a considerable time into the new year. So I'm going to be dropping 3 episodes for this year that were planned, and I'm not dropping them completely. All I'm going to do is I'm going to push them back until after the new year. So that means that the next time you're going to hear the Yorkshire Gamer podcast, it will be the Christmas Brews in the Binyard episode, which I'm hoping to have out in about 3 weeks' time, obviously before Christmas. And then there'll be the annual awards show in its second year, and then we'll be back into normal programming scheduling in January, when as I say, will already have 3 shows already lined up and planned, and then I've got the 6 guests after that already planned but just not booked in. So we're not going anywhere, and I hope you aren't either. We passed 100,000 downloads last episode, and long may it continue. So once again, thank you very much for all your time listening to this podcast. Much appreciated, and hopefully I'll see you again before Christmas. Till then, Sidney.